Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to our Blended Family Breakfast Talks. In these talks, we basically talk about blended families, different challenges that we have in blended families and the schools, and ways that we can able to cope with certain situations, and how do we work around certain difficulties in blended families. There are times where we discuss topics, happy topics as well, where people share their experiences in terms of what they've done to get things right, so what it took them to get to where they are today. Today's topic is on bio parents versus step parent. Well, it's not necessarily a competition, but how do we work together? How have we worked together in blended families as step parents and bio parents? How can we improve those relationships? Have those relationships with you? 2 weeks back, we had the same topic. I delved into the different struggles that one would have. Let me just switch off the music. I hope it's not loud. Let me stop that. Yes, so last week I really just went through the different scenarios that one could experience in a blended family, the roles and responsibilities of each parent, the roles and the influence children have in blended families, and how do we cope with such situations. A follow-up from that discussion was that we would have another to talk and share their stories, can come up and share their bit and their experience around blended families. Oh, congratulations to her. I'm from a nuclear family, but now I'm divorced. Still single at this point and learning about blended families, as I will definitely have one. No, I'm saying congratulations as if it's already happened. I mean, we don't all sign up for it. It happens. And I think so long as you do not want to be single and you definitely want a partner, it's one of those things that you really need to consider. If I decide now that I'm going to be in a blended family, how will this look like for me? If you already have children, how are you managing with your children? How are you managing your current partner? So, I mean, not your current partner, your ex, so that when you bring in a new partner, you have the right boundaries in place and you know exactly what you need to do to ensure that your relationship lasts. Because a lot of times when you do have children, the one thing that stands in the way of your relationship is just you not having boundaries. I'm talking from my own personal experience. Because you don't have boundaries, because you knew that you'd end up being in a blended family, because I knew that after I broke up with the former child that I would definitely be in a relationship afterwards. But I don't think as human beings we actually process what that means and what that looks like for us, and then what do we do to protect the people that we bring into these relationships. There's a certain element of being irresponsible with another person's feelings as well. Thank you. With another person's feelings as well, because if you are not aware of what you are doing and how you impact the person you've brought into your life. Let me pause there. Sorry, I'm being distracted with all the gifts. Thank you for the gifts, Sweneng, and morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, Tejo. Good morning, Pearl. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning. Good morning to you all and welcome to today's live. So I won't spend a lot of time talking today. The topic is exactly the same as the last topic we had two weeks back, and the topic 2 weeks ago was the relationship between bio parents and step parents. How do we make sure that these relationships remain sane? How do we maintain good relationships with the step parents? How do step parents maintain a good relationship with their kids and their partner? Tejo just came in to say that she unfortunately had to go through a divorce, and I was just going through how it can be very difficult for a partner when you yourself haven't processed what being in a blended family looks like. Because, even if your partner doesn't have kids, you're already bringing someone into a blended family just for the mere fact that you have children. And the responsibility we have in that instance is to make sure that we have all, no, well, you can't really have all your ducks in a row, but you've assessed what it looks like to bring someone new. What type of person would actually gel with your family? Because sometimes you can meet the most amazing person, and this person doesn't gel with your family just because of how your kids are, how you are around your ex, how you behave. Yes, they're a marvelous person, but they will not be able to gel unless you put certain measures in place to ensure that my camera angle is just not right. I feel like I'm looking down. Ergonomics is very important. How do you make sure that your new partner is protected, that they're secure? I know people talk about insecurities and they say, no, your partner is insecure. I think taking a step back and assessing what is making that partner insecure. What am I doing to make them insecure? Because in a blended family is a very, very fragile situation, if I can put it that way. It's not easy to just get into a blended family and gel. So there are certain things and measures that you need to put in place to ensure that when you bring in someone new, they are not disrespected, that they are secure. And security is brought in by how you communicate with them. How do you bring them in to how do you communicate with them about your children? Do you include them? Do you put them aside? Do you treat them as just, an extra person, or do you treat them as a partner and a parent to your children? These are the things that can cause insecurity in your partner. These are the things that can make your partner really feel like they are not a part of this family. And then insecurities can pop up in a lot of different ways. So that's why I'm saying you need to just take a step back, especially, sometimes when you're arguing and some people will say it out loud. Some people would actually just think, but why is this person so insecure? What is their problem? Maybe take a step back and check yourself. Am I inclusive? Am I making my partner feel secure? Am I communicating clearly with my partner what my intentions are with them, for my children, what my expectations of them are, how I live my life as well, because blended families, we blend differently. So there are people who blend in a way that your ex is actually a part of your life. You may have broken up, but your ex is literally in your life. You're just not romantically involved, but you have that parental relationship. And, people say there's co-parenting, but I even think in co-parenting, there are levels to it. The reason why I say there are levels to co-parenting is because I can have a relationship where my ex literally walks in the house, sits and have a cup of tea, and then waits for the children to pack their bags. And once the kids have packed their bags, they leave, And in them having that cup of tea, you're literally having a conversation. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You two may be comfortable and you know that the romance is completely gone, it's dead. But the partner that you're bringing into that relationship, have you let them in on this is how we are doing things? How would that make you feel? Have you considered, Uti, would you be willing to change that dynamic in order for you to be able to make your partner comfortable? A lot of partners are not comfortable with such relationships. It's very, very few partners that will be comfortable with that type of relationship. So it's up to you to assess and reflect, okay, this person, will they work for me in this type of situation that I am in, the relationship I have with my ex? Will they be able to survive this? And if not, am I willing to make certain changes? Because I won't say necessary. Those changes are not necessary. Am I willing to make those changes that this person would need me to make? Or do I let go of this person as much as I love them? But for me, having my children, to provide that stability for my children, in that they see their mom and dad are talking. They see their mom and dad have a relationship outside of them. Maybe for you that is more comfortable. So you would have to let them go, but you can't have both. You can't have both. Because I'm telling you now, if your partner is not comfortable with that type of setup, that will not change. It will not change. I want to just go through your Kananelo. Good morning. Good morning, Uncle B. Jeez. Thank you for the follow, Ishmael. My phone screen is cracked, so I can't scroll properly. I need to actually find the time to change my screen. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, how are you? Hi, Tulani. Nice to see you again. Yes, Mutsoning. Hey, I hope one day you'll come up because you're always here. I believe those dynamics should be communicated and honestly so. One should decide if they're okay. Absolutely. And I think even you as a person who is stepping into that situation, don't agree to get into relationships where I am not comfortable with this and think you're going to change it. Especially when your partner has been open and honest with you. Would say, for me, this is a non-negotiable. I am not going to change this situation based on this, and that. And remember, we all come with our own scars. We all come in with our own pain that makes us want to address certain situations a particular way to protect ourselves and also to provide what we couldn't provide for our children. So if that is a value for you, for the person that you've met, that I need to make sure that the relationship between my ex and I is like this for the sake of my children, will you be able to live with it? Don't agree if you know you won't be able to live with that. You're not being fair to yourself, you're not being fair to the children, and you're not being fair to your partner. No partner is actually happy or comfortable with his or her significant other having an ex attached for life. Hey, Khosekgadi, that's true. No one is 100% comfortable with that. But when you get into a relationship with someone who has children, you need to assess whether you can live with it. The heart doesn't have brains. Most of the heart overpowers. And that's true. And that's so true. Our hearts often overpower our brains. I was watching a video the other day. On my timeline, it popped up of the lady that is going, I think she's from Mummy Club. And she's going through the most because her husband wants a second wife, and and so on. And there's been videos on the internet that have been shared of the husband just mistreating the whole family or losing it, in front of the whole family, and wanting to leave the house and go to his girlfriend or whatever. And the kids were begging him to stay at home. And she was interviewed. And in that interview, she shares it's a snippet of the interview. And she was talking about how she met the guy and how this person lied firstly about having these 3 kids. And then on top of that, I think he was like 24 or 23. I think 23 or something when they met, or 24, but he already had 3 kids with 3 different people that he was not honest about in the first place. I think the third child, she found out about the third child when she was pregnant with her second child, but that second child so her first child was not his child, but yeah, she was married with the second child who was his. And everyone is like, oh, but I mean, the red flags were there, because we all felt bad for her, especially when she was on the show. And then we saw that video and people are like, but the red flags were already there. And that's what goes back to what Tutulani was saying. We would say the heart sometimes is just louder than the brain, and you just go for it. And when you listen to this lady, she sounds smart. She's articulate. She's well put together. She's even got a calm spirit. And also she has the sense of bringing the family together. But yeah, matters of the heart. That's why to Asuye Gumjolo. Jose Khadi says, I'm on here to learn. I've entered a relationship with a man with kids and I want to be a decent stepmom. Oh, you will be a decent stepmom. If the guy didn't have money, she wasn't gonna stay. Oh, somebody knows her then. I forgot. Yeah, but I have a feeling that the guy had money now. But I don't want to delve into, the nitty-gritties and debates. The only point I was trying to make is that, she actually saw the red flags. And it seems like at the time as well, she was also not financially, I don't think he was financially stable at that time when they met. So I don't think he was financially stable at that time. They were in varsity. So I think a car at the time, in varsity. So I don't think she comes from an impoverished background. I think she actually comes from a financially comfortable home. Because she had a car in varsity, she had her own apartment in varsity. So maybe it is about the money, because people do stay in relationships with people who are equal to them, but I have no idea. I know that they're financially stable today. I don't know whether she continued to work or study or finish her degree. I don't know, but she kept on emphasizing how they built this life together. And there are instances where, yes, you meet in varsity, but a woman steps back from her career so that you can have the opportunity to work on your business. Let's not forget that part. Who else is saying something before I agree to learn? Your partner should have should be decent as well. Yes, Jose Khadi, your partner should also be decent. That is absolutely true. Let the guy lose his income. She was gonna be out there. Hey, Mr. Landlord, I don't want to entertain this topic of that couple, because it's their story. It's her story. We haven't heard his side. So I don't want to delve into it. But yes, Jose Khadi, you will be a decent stepmom. But the only thing that I could change for 1 minute before I introduce Msuning is that it's not easy. And this is why you'd probably need to come in here more and more. You will, hopefully the others will also come up to talk and share their piece. There's a lot of amazing people here who also host lives. And I think you'll get a lot of assistance on just how to work through problems, because the problems are there. And, there are times where you'll feel like, oh, I'm not doing a great job here. I'm not a good person, and how do you ensure that you work through those emotions and you maintain composure, and staying true to yourself, especially in the difficult moments, because people can really push your buttons, test you, no matter how good of a person you'd want to be. So it's very important that you are able to be composed and constantly remind yourself of who you are when you are in a blended family. But not all blended families are in that way. That's why I'm saying you need to understand the dynamic that you're getting yourself into so that you are able to see what would happen here. Would I be able to survive with this person? How does the ex behave? Does he actually, there's a lady who was even sharing, does he actually have control over the ex? Has he set boundaries with the ex? A friend of mine said once before that a lot of men are scared of their baby mamas. I hate using the word baby mama, but I just wanted to put it out there. A lot of men are scared of their baby mamas and they can't put boundaries. So much that some of them, even when they need to fight for child support, they would step back because they just don't want to go there. There's a guy right now on Metro as well yesterday when I was listening to Ask a Man on my way to work. And this guy was complaining that he thinks the child is his, but he can't even get a DNA test done. He's also married. But this woman told him that the child is his, and next thing, now the child is not his, and now the child is the husband's child. You know, things happen. And you just have to look at those dynamics. How would I survive in this type of situation? Mr. Mutuneng, how are you?
Morning, how are you,
Thank you for finally joining us on the panel.
Avothanda ukufakela abantu ipressure. How are you this morning, man?
I'm well, how are you?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I'm not gonna be here for long. I'm not gonna be up here for long. You know, I work down there. I just wanted to expand on what I said on the comments section. Some of the things maybe it will be a bit sketchy. It would not be clear from the personal side because I'm in the middle of a situation. So yeah, it's a bit tricky to share some of the details. But what I wanted to say is that with the blended situation, I think none of us actually sits and plans that they want to have a child and not be with the other parent. Yes. Particularly for some of us who have grown up in a nuclear family. So you have all the picture drawn and in color for that matter. That this is how I'm gonna live, this is where I'm gonna go, this is how I'm gonna do things, this is how I want to have a relationship with or to relate with my children. This is how I want to relate to their mother if you are a man. But now, as things happen, life happens the way it happens, and then you find yourself in a situation where you really never. This was not part of the script, yeah, and you didn't even have a second plan, because in any way, if you had a backup plan, it would still not work because it will depend on the dynamics between yourself and the other parent in the first instance, or also with yourself and how you dealt with that particular relationship ending, as well as with the dynamics with the new partner. So I honestly think that sometimes when we get into this situation, or after getting out of the relationship with the people that we had kids with, sometimes we rush into getting into new relationships and we come with our own ideas how it's gonna play out. We come with the script of this movie, as if this movie somebody will just come in and join the script and then understand their new role and then act accordingly. And another thing is, if you join that situation, you come with your own script that is not communicated with the script writer of the first script. And then you just want to come and then you just hope. I think most of the time we just come with a lot of hope. We come with a lot of hope, and that hope it's sometimes detached from reality. That there are things, and I mean there are dynamics that it really need to be communicated, and then to avoid frustration, so that we know from the onset this is how you want it to play out. And to also understand that this is how you want it to play out, and you are not going to move an inch to make it play otherwise. And then here I am sitting here thinking, Hori, MacGyver, now I'm gonna make a change a position. This is how it's gonna play. And if that doesn't play out the way I want it to play out, we have our own dynamics in terms of our relationship. Now there is this situation that I have to deal with. Yeah, a person who's refusing to join my script and to act accordingly. So now it muddies the waters so much more long, eventually sometimes the relationship ends, or it comes with another sort of level of toxicity, so that when you end this relationship, now you are carrying stuff from the first relationship and this one. Now you amend your script, you go to the next movie, and so the story goes on until we come to a position, as I wrap up, until we come to a situation where we understand, let me sit down with this person that I want to start life with, or that I want to build life with, going this particular direction. Let me make this person understand, this is how I view things, and let me not to think like the world operates the way I see it. And then to say, so to say, this is how I think it's gonna play out. Tell me and be honest about it. This one, this one, yeah, maybe we can try. Or this one, this is how we do it. I'm making an example with the issue that you just mentioned of your ex coming, perhaps as an example, of course, ex coming and sitting and having a coffee while waiting for the kids, and then I'm not there. I'm telling you, there is no other man who also Obama dole in emzini. You have to meet at the garage, or you have to meet at the gate, or somebody else must come and then you find the other party believing what I am the parent, nobody else is gonna be communicating anything that relates to my child. So I think if we lay out those things from the onset, and then we decide, okay, yes, we can compromise here and there, but there are those things that you believe, Hore, this is how it's gonna be done, and in your heart of hearts, you believe there's no other way of doing this thing. For me, I don't think it's correct, because it goes directly, besides the impacting on the relationship with your current partner, it also impacts on your relationship with your kids and how you intended to raise them, or how you intend raising them. And then it muddies all sorts of, it muddies the waters, in a sense that if this plays a part in how you raise your children, if they turn out in a particular way, you end up resenting the current partner because they did not allow you to act up in a particular way that you believe would have made your children turn out a particular way. So you see, it just gets messier and messier, eventually spilling into this relationship, and this relationship has its own children also. You start looking at them otherwise, or now here I am giving everything to this woman to make sure that her children, you call them her children at that point again, I can also her children have the best life, but she is not allowing me to have to make my children have the best life that I wanted them to have. I think this woman is evil, actually. I just didn't see it from the onset. I'm thinking those are the messages that start playing in your head. So if we communicate these things from the onset, maybe we try to clear some of these areas so that at least we understand each other. If something doesn't sit well with you, let's talk about it. Let's see how far do we go with that conversation, and then at least even if we do not eventually agree, I know where you stand, you know where I stand, and then maybe we will find each other. Or if it's something big that we believe, or yeah, you see, if we cannot agree on this one, I say vale, spelele khona la, so that I can start over, so that I decide if I'm gonna do this on my own. In this thing of parenting, I'll do it on my own, or I'm gonna bring these children into this blend into our family and blend it, or I'm gonna participate in their lives, baliko balinting, and then just do it like that, and then avoid complications if I feel it's complications. Be I don't know, not in a bad way. I'm just saying, for lack of better word, and operate from a freelance perspective.
What
In
is
the
it?
sense, in other words, in a situation where I'm free, I'm not attached to anyone. I just relate with my children the way I relate with them, without having to deal with this side in terms of how I relate with them. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mtswening, wow. And you're speaking truths. I see Lisa's like, yo, that's so. But it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. What you were talking about, where men end up, even your family members can even say your wife is actually evil because of that. But why do you think women generally, in a lot of blended families, you see that the women's kids are always the ones in the house and spending most time with you. And what we usually get is he's taking care of another man's child and not his own. But I mean, I have an answer, but I want to hear your perspective on this, because it's always the case. And then when the kids come and visit, you always have an issue where now sometimes there's no good relationship between the stepmom and the children, which will end up causing some sort of complication. But why is it that it's always this case? I think 80% of the time it's the women's kids in the house with you, but also there's this thing that your wife is chasing the kids away from the house.
Sorry, Zama,
Sure.
I have to leave, right? And I just wanted to, before we even get to a point of answering your question, answer, I know that I'm literally just taking over now, right? And I'm sorry about that, because I thought I needed to just highlight what my take is, especially on what is being discussed, and of course moving. Agerre Motsoeneng le Rre Thulane, dumelang hle. Deputy President Uncle
Tulani.
Motsoeneng, right? And I'm saying there is a need for us to be able to lay foundations, right? In terms of how we want this particular relationship to be able to move forward, and especially when it comes to, because remember, I mean, there's a reason why there is blended families, because things could not be able to work out, right? But for me, what is also key is, and I'm looking what who's that lady, by the way, uh, who wants to be a good stepmother, right? I just forgot her name, but
Kgosigadi.
Khosikadi, yes, and I think you also realize that as Uncle Motsoeneng actually speaks, there is also that particular element of self and of ego as well that actually comes into the play, in terms of, I would not want any other man to actually come into my household and as of that before and then drink tea and whatsoever and all those things. Why bangahlanganyeli egarage? And for me, I'm moving from a point, because I experienced those things when things were hitting rock bottom, where I had to meet Umdwana at McDonald's, where I had to meet Umdwana, at a garage and whatsoever. And I realized, Uti, um, it becomes sore, because then for a child as well, it's a mark, right? It becomes a mark. It becomes a dot on a white shirt. Just one dot of an ink unto the child, to be able to say, but why is my father meeting me here instead of picking me up at home and whatsoever? And unless, of course, you are meeting there to be able to have whatever. But when you pick her up, it's something else. Now, and I'm saying, I'm highlighting this thing to be able to say, I think it's high time that as people that are actually in relationships, we also think about.
Uncle B, for some reason, I think we lost you. Yeah, your activity.
Right. Hello?
Yes, you can continue.
Okay. To move away from a point of how you, and I'm not saying you need not be able to consider your emotions in this case, but let it be that your emotions do not actually take over the sense out of what you actually want to be able to then begin to achieve. Because I can tell you now, more often than not, that's what people actually do. They would rather babhidlize indlu on the basis of emotions, that how they actually feel, instead of being able to bite the tongue and be able to see the way the other partner is actually see, but also look at it in terms of the perspective of a child. And I can tell you now, the number one enemy in our life, it's the emotions and the feelings that we actually begin to highlight in how we think about what is actually happening. A lot of us, we are thinking, if they ever were involved with this particular person, what would stop them from being able to go and make just for the lack of a better way, a quickie somewhere and whatsoever. And we cannot be directed by that. And I always I always say this particular story to say, a father of one of my children was sick. And I can tell you this much, that me having to be able to be able to say, Busang, you're more than your emotions. You're more than how you even begin to feel around this man. And already, I realized, Ubana, there was a point where I had to get to a point where I begin to mature. And let me even say this, to say, when this man was sick, I had to even pray for this man at a set 7 o'clock in the evening every single day for 5, if not 6 days. And and I'm saying, we can't let our emotions, we can't let our insecurities to be able to go ahead of us in because remember, some of us, we are traumatized, and we don't want our children to get to that point as well. But also, even when you get into that particular partnership, and I always say, yes, mhlawumbe abantwana, they might be influenced and whatsoever, but I can tell you this much: in them being able to grow, there is always the element of them knowing as to whether this man was good to me or this woman was good to me, despite the fact that he was not my mom or was not even my father. But that thing will always be there in their minds, and they would see through whoever is actually influencing or does not even. I mean, just yesterday I heard of a couple that try to do, something so that they're able to get money and pay for whatever, and they went the divorce route, to be able to say, let's also get this thing. But when the child of a woman actually got into an accident, the man, it was like for an opportunity for him to be able to best to say, "Ulaigile." I mean, how do you say that? And that, in actual fact, the divorce that they actually did to be able to save, so that they are able to get part of the money and they're able to pay, actually fell through for real. It's like they are no longer together, as we speak now. And I'm just saying that it is. Can we also be able to be in and remember, become bigger people in this particular instance as parents, right?
Yeah.
As parents, and to be able to raise our children in a way that would also be pleasing, not only unto them but unto the Lord as well. And I that would be my case in this particular instance, when as I'm rushing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uncle P. Thank you for your insight. I will go back to what Uncle P was talking about. I just want to go back to this question of women and children. Mr. Mutsuning, because I know he also wants to drop very badly. I'm sure he's even itching to click the drop button. I want to go back to the statement that you made, because for me that stuck with me. I've heard it a number of times where even a man's family would say, uxosha abantwana bendoda yakhe, kodwa indoda ihlala ney'ngane zakhe. And then you'll also hear statements sokuthi he left his kids to go and raise another man's kids. How do we get here? What gets us here to this point? Mr. Mutsuning, I want to go to you with this. What gets us to this point? Because I'm sure even if it's not your personal experience, but you've seen it happen, and maybe you've done a mental assessment of what could be the cause of this.
yaze yanzima ke le. You know, Sizama, these are some of the things that it's very difficult for me to wrap my head around. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, on top of my head, what I could be thinking is that the kind of relationship that the mother has with the child is something that cannot be explained easily. And sometimes when we get to a situation where you don't want to accept another woman's kids in your house, it's, for me, it's more of a projection than anything. Projection of your own fears and things like that about your own kids. Because you cannot imagine yourself having your children raised by another woman because you don't, maybe because of the connection that you have with them, or you believe that the other woman would not love your kids the same way as you would love them. So I'm just thinking, it's just something that kind of, how can I put it, kind of confirms our position to say there is no other woman who can raise my kids more than me. So that kind of plays out with you when you are supposed to relate with another woman's children, because you believe that, you strongly believe that there is no love that the children that can get, there is no better love than the one that they get from their mother, because of the kind of relationship that goes pre-birth, and so to speak. So you would perhaps, in my mind, you believe that you might not do justice actually in terms of loving them, unless also is the fact that perhaps you would not love them genuinely.
Yeah.
And for me, instead of you pretending and knowing very in your heart of hearts you really don't like them, I think it's better for you to be clear like that, no matter how painful it may be. Why? In fact, if anything, if you show me that you don't like my kids, is the best thing that you can do for me and those kids at that moment, because you can't give them what they deserve. And you don't want to bring them here and create an impression that they will get that kind of love that they deserve. And then rather, let them go back to their mother and get that kind of love, because you can't give them. You don't want to put yourself under pressure by creating an impression that you're gonna love them like their mother when you won't. But there's another side of the same coin. You see, when you take certain positions, you have to reconcile yourself with the other side of the flip side of the same coin. To say, in as much as you would want these children to not be part of this family, technically that's what you mean basically, then you must appreciate the fact that in as much as you love your children, I also love my children. And if you actually separate me from my children, you're gonna have a man that is not entirely happy with being with you to start with. Not necessarily you see, I want to emphasize this point. There is something that happens with relations between men and women, is that when I whatever don't, perhaps me and you, we are not longer on the same page. I want to separate with you. For women, how I observe things, there is always this belief that he left me because of another woman. He left me because he wanted to be. He left me. There is no. In fact, you are distancing yourself from the responsibility of actually a responsibility that will bring you to a point of introspection to say, what is it that I could have done better? So you sometimes you'll find it will seem to me that women are struggling to accept that a man doesn't want to be with you, not because he wants to be with another woman. He's with another woman because he doesn't want to be with you anymore. If you get the what I mean. So eventually it would be the fact that if you become a wedge between me and my kids, you must know, even if it's not now, at some point, the chickens will have to come home to roost. Unless you create an environment that says, let him have the relationship with the children, at least that will make him a happy man when he's here. And then so that it would not be, for him, he would not feel like your kids are stealing something that also his kids deserve, if that makes sense at all. If that makes sense. I think that's where we need to actually be clear to say, if I don't want to bring them here, we try to build and we try to raise them the way we believe parenting should be done. He's gonna raise his children with another woman, with a much closer relationship with that woman in terms of their upbringing, which some of the things that he does on the other side, they are gonna show this side. And we're gonna have so now he has 2 or 3 mothers who have a different idea of parenting, and then he is only one. And then somehow, when he does something or he wants to do something with the kids, you would believe, oh, I don't raise my children like that. I think that kind of thing. I know I said a lot of things which I doubt they actually answered your questions, but it is what it is, eh?
No, but you definitely answered. Because what I get from what you're saying is that, firstly, a partner can decide, Uguti, they actually just don't want to be involved with your children. And some people will say it, okay, I know you have children, but not in my house. And then when a person says that, it's your decision now as a partner to say, okay, if they say not in their house, am I going to agree with this or not as a partner? Now, as the person who's receiving this information. But then there's also the element of a mother being the primary parent, the mother's connection to the child, making that connection, making it hard for the mom to let go and allow someone else to take care of their children. But also on the flip side, it also makes it hard for certain mothers to think, will I be able to love these children as much as I do my own? But I think if that's the case as well, it's a matter of deciding, if your partner says, I don't think I'll be able to love your kids the way I love my own, you have to then come back and think to yourself, is this actually what I want for myself and my children? Did you want to come in, Mr. M?
Yeah. No, just a final point, just in less than 30 seconds. I don't know. I think a lot of things that we do, you see, when you do things from a place of being unhealed, from a place of pain. For instance, for an example, if you come here with the children of your own, you have your own views about how you feel about that man. In some instances, you would find that a lot of things that you are doing this side is because of the pain that you're still reeling from, that unhealed, what you call wounds of the previous relationship with the father of those children. So I don't know, maybe those kind of things also play part in terms of how you relate, because of the relationship that you have with the father of your children, of the father of your child, then you want to bring that and project them on the relationship that I have with the mother of my kids. I don't know if that also makes sense at all. Thank you very much. Let me drop it.
I expected that to come from you, Uncle B. Then I'm gonna go to Tulani and
Yeah,
Millie.
I'm sorry to learn about that. Mutsweni, what I think you raised valid points there. But I also want to highlight to say I think I'll go back to what I've been saying throughout the weeks to be able to say, when somebody has been raised in a blended family, it's easier for them to be able to accept. But those that have not been able and especially their experiences with a blended family that they ever had, either it was a worst one or it was the best one, or even if it is a worst one, they want to change the trajectory of the one that they're actually forming themselves, right? So that it becomes better for the children that are actually coming. And I just want to say that it is, the other thing that makes us to actually tick, and I hear what Gina is saying, and I hear what KK is actually saying, is that brings about a trigger in our lives, is that we always believe that no any other person will actually love my children the way their father or even their mother actually love them. And that in itself, it actually sets you to have bounds and boundaries actually for you to be able to allow anybody, yeah, to be able to allow anybody to come into your life. and and I'm saying this because I also understand, Bana, like any relationship. I mean, you with your mother, with my mother, or even with your mother, there are times when you fight with your own mother, right? There are times when you do not agree with your mother. There are times when your mother is not happy with you. But unfortunately, because we are creatures of highlighting emotions of other people towards our own children, then we would certainly be able to have challenges towards the person who's also saying, I love you and I'm raising your children. And any time and every time that we get to a point where Mshambe, you want to highlight an issue over the child to say you can't do this, it's like, but it's not right towards my child. And I've always said to my wife, Mina, for as long as these children are in this house, if they are doing anything wrong, I'm not gonna call you, I'm gonna speak to them because they are my children, right? And you need to deal with the fact you become sensitive to it. And
I'm not hearing you, Uncle B.
I'm just saying, when Zama, I think at some point we allow our fears. And I heard Umtwening talking about hope, which we can allow hope, but we need hope in all things that we need to be able to start, especially when it comes to this blended family. But also we need to understand, Bana, these are children. And I think the most unfortunate thing, when Azama, that we actually do as people is that we have there is an element of highlighting the fact that someone is biologically a child, right? And once we are able to go beyond somebody being just biological and begin to say she is a child or they are a child and I am the father, despite and in spite of me being biological, then it's our battle is half won. And our partners need to be able to understand, at this day and age, Umtwana has a latitude to be able to have four parents, by the way, right? which could make their lives to be more interesting as well, and have a perspective which is quite different. I mean, I don't have issues when my children are actually speaking about their fathers in front of me. In actual fact, I'm saying let them not forget their father, right? They can't forget their father. I mean, there was a time when my little daughter would hide when he speaks to the father. And I had to say to her, Nana, you must understand this is your father. And we can't change that particular fact. If you want to speak to him now, if you want to speak to him however and whatever the time, please let it not be even you don't need a hiding place. But what is even more important is that we need to understand ukuthi abantwana bethu as well must also respect their own parents, because sometimes we because of the influence or whatever the anger that they actually have, they would not even begin to respect their own fathers or even their mothers, and it might be blamed on squarely on the ones that are actually raising them, which is that particular stepfather or stepdad, for a lack of a better word. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Uncle B. I think when Mutsuning was talking about what's this? Hope. He was just saying that people normally, you'll tell them what you want, when you're meeting, what your values are, what your no-go areas are, and then you'll see this as a red flag. I won't survive if I'm in a relationship with this person. But then you will continue knowing ukuthi you don't want to date someone with children. You continue to date someone with children, and then you get into that relationship and cause havoc, because initially you were not committed to being with someone with children. Tulani, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Zama?
I'm good, thank you.
A long time.
I know, yes. I'm glad to see you
Yeah,
here.
I'm back. I had to be back, but my submission will be brief as always, as I'm always learning from you guys. Thanks a lot, Uncle B and Mutoneng.
Right.
I think you've said a mouthful. If I were to add, I'll be messing everything up. However, to the topic at hand, I think my story that I once shared might be a good example. Well, it's a good example to me. The advice that I would give to people, if you see that your life with your kids and your current partner is going towards the direction of maybe in the nearest future to the direction of an arrangement of your family being blended, allow it. Don't hold back. Don't fight it. Because the minute you fight it, you are creating problems for you and for your kids and for your future partner in the future, right? And then if it gets to a point whereby now it's actually blend it more, contribute towards of being blended more, so that there will be this stable relationship between you and your kids, your current partner, your ex, and the step parent of your child. Because the minute you start fighting this thing, the ego will start kicking in. You won't be making decisions from your brain, but they will come from your emotions and from your heart. That I am a man, I am a woman. My decision should prevail. And then moving right along, we must be careful when it comes to matters of the heart. When you are in a relationship, you don't sign any contract. You just fall in love. It's by coincidence, and then it builds towards a serious and a stable relationship. Then you start taking serious decisions whereby you say, I want to marry Uzama because I've seen particular qualities that qualifies Uzama to be my wife. Point taken, point granted. But now, when it's time, or when the time comes for you guys to break up, you don't have notice. You don't say on particular date you're going to break up. It just happens. And then when you move to the next relationship, you cannot then say to your partner, go back and get a proper reference of me in a relationship. How do I operate? And then it becomes more trickier if now kids are involved. Remember, the breakup was a messy one. Now, how do you then go back and say, please recommend me to this current master, to Zama, as Zama is coming in this relationship with her kids? It's going to be very complicated. So what you need to do, you just need to go back and think about it, assess your relationship and people that are involved in this blended family, as we call it, and say, are these people matured enough to handle this situation? How do I then rescue them and bring them on this side of me now that I understand that it's no longer about me and how I feel. It's about all these people who are involved here, especially our kids, you know, and then reach out to the step parent that now that is now is in the picture and say, I know that you are here. I'm also here. My kid is here. My ex is here. You might hear or you might know or might see things about me that I'm not even aware of. Let us be friends. Let us talk about things. Let us understand each other so that our kids will understand us and understand this environment as well. So, hence, I'm saying Motoning and Uncle P have said a lot. I've been taking notes, and thank you so much for this opportunity. But let me give others a chance to speak.
Thank you, T. Thank you, Tulani. You know, it's true. We need to just put our emotions aside. And the one thing that I take away from this is stop. And for those who are here and are seeing ukuthi lento le ayisayindawo, leave it early. Leave it early, like KK is saying, the kids will suffer. If the breakup is toxic, your kids experience that. And usually, when the breakup is bad, there's always one parent who seems to suffer more than the other, especially the parent who's holding on. I had a white friend when I was in primary school who despised her mom. For the longest, I was in primary school with this girl for 4 years, and in the 4 years I knew her, she despised her mother. And this is because the mother decided to leave, but by the time the mother left, the damage was already done. And it makes it also difficult for your partner to come in now in this relationship because, firstly, the ex is bitter. And males are bitter too, by the way. So the ex is bitter because they didn't want to let go. Every time the child hears your ex talking badly about you, Uncle Mutwening also, Mr. Mutwening also mentioned, Uguti, sometimes you'll find that the ex is not over it and they always believe, Uguti, you left me because of this woman, not taking accountability to know I left because actually this relationship was not working. This relationship between you and I is no longer working. So because the blame is on the new partner, and sometimes even if the new partner comes 5 months or a year later or 2 years later, they can still be blamed for the breakup somehow. We are not together with your mom, or I'm not together with your dad because this is the person that is standing in the way. And that's why you get situations. I don't know, there was a lady on the chat chatting to Lisa who was actually saying that she's experiencing such a bad relationship with her stepdaughter. And that sometimes is the contributing factor, because if you are not here, then maybe there is potential for my parents to get back together. Make it clean. Make it clean and stop blaming other people for your relationship not working. I'll go to Ish. I hope I'm saying this right. Is it Mile?
Yes, you are right. I don't know if I'm audible because I'm experiencing
Loud and clear.
problems of network this side.
You're
Yeah,
loud.
what I wanted to say, because Abu Tulani they said it mouthful, is majority of children nowadays are coming from broken families. Sorry to say that. And parents don't realize that they need to sit down to reach common grounds with their kids, also the biological fathers as well as stepfathers, so that they can achieve a common goal. But people, rather than having solutions on that, they are bitter, they put pride in front of them, neglecting children, of which, like, the most vulnerable people who are going to suffer in this are children. I cannot put the pride in front of me, whereas there are children implicated in the situation. Once, like, for instance, I move on with somebody, and that particular somebody should know my kids, and like I should also know her kids. We should have a proper meeting whereby we're going to mitigate those factors that are going to affect the children. Also, what is required from children, how do we expect them to behave, and they should try by all means to mingle with another. A relationship between two different children from two parties should be promoted at all times. So we miss a lot in terms of these issues, whereby we only think about our relationships. We don't think about our children, even if, more especially men. You can go and marry maybe you can go and date somebody, a lady, and you find that that lady, she's not in good terms with your kids. So therefore, what you are saying is very much right, that you should stop it instantly, or address it. If, like, for instance, you reach common grounds with that particular lady, it's only when you can continue. But like, if, like, you are disagreeing, then I think you should call it a quit. But the most vulnerable people in this era of broken families are kids. I thank you.
Thanks, Millet. Please, before you go, I wanted to check with you, and I hear what you're saying, let it go. But do you understand that there's also a dynamic way, because your partner is not, and I think I shared it just now before you spoke, where because your partner is not happy with you moving on, and sometimes they can even be in a relationship, but they sort of use the children, and the child will be trained to get to that house and fight with your stepmom. Whatever she says she wants, don't do it, do the opposite. How do you know that it's your partner not getting along with your child, or it's you not having a good handle on your ex and your children, that this then ends up causing problems between you and the children? And when, as you see it as a partner, you're just seeing it as, oh, she doesn't like my children, or my children don't get along with her, then she must go. You get another partner, same thing happens. You get another partner, same thing happens.
Yeah, you remember I said, like, both parents who are involved in co-parenting, we should have a meeting. And like, for instance, let's say you were dating somebody. You know what is that particular person capable of, and that influence can also come into your house. So it's better if, like, maybe you have meeting, then you decide on rules, common grounds. But the most important thing is to see the party that is not cooperating, or the child who's not cooperating, is to spend time with them, because you will learn more about them.
Yes.
If you don't spend time with them, like, for instance, you are always out, whenever maybe the stepmother tells you that, okay, this one does not behave, it will be very much difficult for you to believe, as a result of not having ample time with your kids. So it's very eminent. It's of a paramount that you must create time, because during this time it's only when you can learn. Only when you can, and when you reprimand somebody, if, like, he or she is willing to listen, you must know that, okay, I will be able to go on with this relationship. But if he or she refuses, a child refuses, problems are there. And whenever problems are there, you need to establish, why is this person refusing to be reprimanded? Because, like, there's always two sides of the coin. Sometimes you find that the stepmother does not have a proper relationship with your kids, but only that can happen if you spend time with them. Priority, set your priorities straight. Like, now, I've got two kids. My priorities are my kids. You understand? Even though I'm married to you, Zama, but, like, my priorities are my kids. I cannot let my kids suffer at your own expense. You understand? But however, it is very much important to nurse the relationship if it's working. If it's not working, there's no point of nursing that relationship. Like I said, we live in a world whereby a majority of children come from the broken families, and this affects them on daily basis. I so wish, like, parents can log into this, and so that they can learn more about how co-parenting can work.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think it's actually even more important for you to understand your children even before you bring someone in and ensuring that you nurture that relationship between your partner and your child. Because remember, your partner doesn't know your child. The nurturing comes with you setting boundaries with your partner, with your child, saying to your child, listen, this person here is the woman of the house. To your partner, this my children are a priority for me. So whatever happens, we have to work through it. I don't say let's keep children and allow them to be disrespectful, but we also can't get to a point where we're giving up on our children. Yes, I mean, we alone, I mean, Uncle B said it clearly earlier. We fight with our parents. There's a time when my mother doesn't talk to me for a week. Or my mom will say, "Hambi gogo wakho ngoba uyahluleka ukuyiphatha kahle." But that doesn't mean ukuthi 2 months after sengisiwe kagogo for discipline, mase buye ekhaya, it's no longer home. No. Yabo. So I think we also need to also understand that kids will fight with parents. Kids will have disagreements with parents. Uncle B also said it nicely where he says, it's, sometimes when sometimes when it comes from a step parent, umuntu ongakuzalanga, it comes off as harsh, and step parents are greatly judged for parenting. A step parent will say, hambi yowasha izitsha, kuthiwa uhlale etshena ingane yami ukuthi ayowasha izitsha. Meanwhile, if I wasn't there as a step parent and you were a nuclear family, the step mom, your mom will constantly tell you every day, hambi yowasha izitsha. Every day, guys, we grew up in homes. Every day, your mom will tell you to go wash the dishes. And when you dodge, uzovuswa nje kabuhlungu embedeni kuthiwa ngo-1 ekuseni, they will wake you up at 1 a.m. in the morning. You didn't wash the dishes. You didn't mop the floor properly. But when it comes from a step parent, it's abuse. And that's where it becomes very tricky and difficult for step parents sometimes, where you find them actually even now moving back and saying, I don't want to parent too much because I'm going to be seen as an evil step parent. Mile, did you want to come in? And then I'll move to Mseleko after this point.
I wanted to say, like, before you can be in relationship with the other party, after maybe breaking out from the past relationship, again, it's very much important for you to go for counseling. Also, the person that you'll be dating, both of you, go for counseling, because I think psychologists will give you what to expect and how can you handle such situations. You see, because going into a relationship without proper counseling, counseling works. And like what I've realized amongst us as blacks, we neglect that. It works. We think that we know, and we don't know that we don't know, actually. So go for counseling. Both of you. You can go alone, then take your partner. Then after taking your partner, take your child, so that the children can hear this from a neutral person. So I think that will work, Sam. Thank you very much. Have yourself a wonderful Saturday.
Thank you so much for your inputs. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mseleko, I don't want to say Mr. Ngoba, it might be Mrs. Mseleko. How are you?
I'm not sure ukuthi i-network yami is good, yes, because as much as make yaba bad ngicela ungikhade please. But
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. No, man, I grew up on a blended family. I think my mom left my two brothers, a Gibo, and then went to get married to my dad. And then he found my dad with 3 kids. She raised 2 kids, 2 daughters, which is my sister. And then one thing that I like about their relationship was like she understood she understood the time she got married to Guti. She's gonna raise my dad's kids. And then even after my dad passed, we grew up knowing Guti, these are my sisters. And then my dad passed on when I was 1 year, 6 months. And then when I grew up, I grew up, my brother from my mom, he was staying next door into my parents' place next door. And then when I started grow up, and then I asked him, now why is my brother staying next door? And then my mom was like, no, I don't want to mix. Even though ngeke uhlanganise umshado nomntwana ongekho emshadweni, because of your brother is using a tradition as amaXhosa, and then when now you're Zulu, my brother was kind of like using imithetho yakulo mama because of akashadwanga ngithi umama. And then our side Tina, we were using Zulu because of my mom was a Xhosa. Yes, then he got married to my dad, which is the Zulu. And then it was even good, even now, even though I'm married, he is not even contributing or maybe trying to change isiko lwethu because of yena is a Xhosa and then we're Zulu, you understand? And then when he come like a brother, and then he is respecting us. We are doing our thing. And I'm the only brother, mina, or Buti Ekaya, emshadweni, actually. And then I'm doing everything according to isin to Sami. And then when I visit him, he's doing his Xhosa sakhe, and then I respect him up until he will like, no, can you stand up when asiza lapana lapana lapana? And then we respect one another. You understand? And then the thing is, when we get married, we forget ukuthi siyakhula singabantwana because of another things. When we mix and then we ended up, let's say maybe my wife will let her umntwana. We ended up seeing ngikhulisa umntwana with my tradition, and then get jealous when the father wants to do his own thing. You understand? And then even now into my marriage, we are in the blended marriage, because a blended family, because of my wife brought umntwana. And then those ukhabana, like the kid will be what is this English with the barriers or whatever umntwana like ayenza they do happen up until me and the wife, we sat down and like, no, we can't. Usemdala manje, he need to go ayohlala nabazali bakhe, like sorry, no gogo wakhe. You understand? It was something that we agree on. You understand? And then even namanje, the fact that we agreed, I still supporting the child. I still do the needs. I'm still taking the kid to university. You understand? I even though yes, it break a relationship, that thing, because of one doesn't respect some. You understand? Because of uhleli no nabazali bakhe nomama wakhe, and it looks like sengimtshontshele umzali wakhe, because of he doesn't know that thing yokuthi ufanele hlale nomunye ubaba ngam-understand, and ijealousy wakhona ebantwaneni. You understand? But then if you parent ni understand one another, it becomes very good. Because even now, yes, my wife nami ngithole nginabantwana, but then ukhulisa abantwana bami, even yeah, abantwana bami sihlala nabantwana bami. And then yes, there's challenges there and there, and then you need to face them. If like if the communication between me nomama wabantwana wami wangaphandle, I tell ukuthi ngicela abantwana, don't call my kids anytime. Yes, the kids they have phone, but then try and understand ukuthi call the kids up until 6 o'clock. This thing of SMSing, call the kids 9 o'clock. Yes, the kids, but they will manipulate you, because you're gonna be asking questions. Wuti, are they right? Are they do this? And then you're gonna get into uifunayo. You understand? But then try and respect me, or respect our self, or understand kids wuti, but they can manipulate you. And then if you want to understand ukuthi sihlala kanjani la, you get that information from kids. As much as now you have a partner, I will also respect that. You understand? There's times, even now, my kids are by segue after the training, I take my kids to the training, and then ngiyabaletha abantwana. Then there's that communication, and then communication again of money. I mean, I put myself ngaphandle. I ask my wife ukuthi kube wuye umuntu wenza ama-financial and everything. And sometimes even though afone ngitshela man there's something or mhlambe I'm lacking lapha nalapha, I couldn't pay school fees because of now uyasibhadala school fees because ebengasebenzi sonke lesikhathi. Then he called, was like, can I contribute school fees in? And then I'm like, no, sharp, you can do everything lekufuna ukuthi makuyenze. And then sometimes when she doesn't able to pay school fees, she calls with, hey man, this 3 months ngeke ngikwazi. And I'm like, no, don't worry, let me just pay for the rest of the year, ungawari. And those kind of the things ngizikhuluma nomama wasendlini ukuthi no, listen, I got a call from umama lengane lezi une problem so, or I got a call with her uzocela ukuthi uthatha abantwana baya ekhaya, but then she cannot able ukuthi abathengele impahla bekacela ukuthi si contribute. And mina I feel like it is very good if nini communication nina niyezwana, you understand. Now iyenza ukuthi kube nothando at the end of the day, and then akuna umunye umuntu ofihlela, as long as you can understand ukuthi kids can manipulate a system, I think that family izophila kahle. That's my contribution, sis.
Thanks, Msele. Before you go, I wanted to check with you. How do you think your parents got it right? Because obviously nina nine respect amongst each other as half siblings, as step siblings, benzwana, nihloniphana, nibahlonipha abazali. What were they able to instill kunina as umthetho abawubeka ukuze nani nibone ukuthi hayi mana asikho isidingo sokuthi silwe noma or asikho isidingo sokuthi ngilwe nobhuti wami regardless of who his mom is or who his dad is?
I can't tell you exactly. Angithi mina azange ngikhule nomama wami nobaba wami. Mina ngikhule noma oni. You understand? And then uma besifundisa ukuthi
sorry, I missed
yes,
that.
I was a kid, mina I don't know ukuthi kwenzakaleni, you understand. But then I like into ebeqedwa nguMiles la eqeda ukuyikhuluma ukuthi I understand ingane fanele nibe nama boundaries einganeni ukuthi into enikhulumayo noyithuma nike nezwana izokwenza umehluko. If you cannot able to stay with kids, go and have a counseling, you understand. But another thing into a relationship, mina one thing that I do, I communicate a lot. He's right put magaphuma. I when I get mangibuye emsebenzini, I make sure ukuthi ngihlala ngisendlini, and then I try to monitor yonke into, even if the kids baba rebellious ngibakhona endlini, because sometimes ngishayisa ngo2, sometimes I'm off, sometimes ngena ngo10 ebusuku. I can able to see ukuthi kwenzakalani, and the respect yimi or kind of like trying to control it ukuthi no, this is not the way we're supposed to be talking, you understand. And then even last day, my kids, yes, but rebellious. Sometimes they don't want to wash dishes. They don't want to do all those things, you understand. But what I like about my wife, she's still sitting down with me, and imagine still about bed for 8 years now, but then we still seeing those challenges, you understand.
Your kids
We still communicate
bahlala nawe full time abantwana bakho?
full time.
Oh.
Yes, ahlala nami full time. There's okay, mina I made it clear wena mina sisi ukuthi ngihlelile nomama umntana wami uqala ngathi ngine between mina nawe umuntu onamandla yimi. And then when you're not working, and then I'm living a better life, and then yes into ama differentiation way to when you decided to go to mawuhambe, and then but please don't affect abantwana because of la uhlala khona uyoqasha, and mina bengisahlala ekhaya, and then bengihlala ekhaya, and then I ended up buying my own house. But then I even said ukuthi okay, listen, we have a house engaphandle that me and my wife are saying abantwana bethu. It was not into our marriage because of singayithola after sengihlala nomfazi wami, but then it was kind of like ukuthi still indlu yabantwana bethu, bantwana labo. But then she was like, you know what? Because of the life is too expensive, and then we cannot give them layer. Ama rates and all those things are expensive, kind of like buma 4,000. Now let's stay here, si raise enye imali, and then so that ukuthi nama businesses, because we are on businesses too much man. Then we were like, okay, let's stay here, and then sizothi mase si right sithenge izindlu, everyone babe comfortable, because of right now kuzoba nzima ukuthi we give them that house, and then the rates and all those things are gonna end up affecting them. You understand? Now let's rather sluphekeni sonke, and then sibone ukuthi i-plans wenze njani, and then we still have plans in between ukuthi are they gonna take that house, or are we gonna buy enye indlu for them? We izinto ezifana nalezo, because of at the end of the day I might die, and then abantwana bami bogcina sehlupheka, and it's something that we're talking about.
I like the way you're planning for children. Sorry.
Yes, we're planning and we're talking, and it's not something that affects omunye. You understand? Because of izinto ezizokwenzakala at the end of the day. You understand? Now, the reason behlala nami is those kind of the things ukuthi bazohlala better. And once, okay, the point is, if abantwana bazohlala nawe, bazojwayela ukuthi bahlale kuwena, and I don't want my kids to come and own my businesses bengazange babone ukuthi isiphi istyle lesi bengiphila kusona. If mhlambe bengithakatha, I want my kids to understand, because of I was even in my business in Mamatics. I want my kids to stay with me so that they can see ukuthi ngiphila eyiphi impilo, so that they can see ukuthi how did I struggle into this business, because if I know once I die, the family will come and say, no, lama taxi la alawa abantwana, lezi lama room la alawa abantwana, lendlu le yela abantwana. You understand? And then the business will izogcina seyishona business. You understand? Because of they didn't stay with me.
Hey, you're touching on a different topic now. I don't even want to go there, but I think it's a topic that we need to talk about one day, how we do not pass our learnings down to our children. I think it's such a big topic, and that is why uthole ukuthi filthy rich families emalokishini kudala amanye awile, because iy'ngane, they don't know how to continue the business like their father or mother did. But I don't even want to delve into that. In the ebuzwayo la, and I was asking this when Mr. M was talking earlier. Lento le yokuthi umntwana oyedwa kuzothiwa angeke akhona ukuhlala la. Yabona, when you mentioned that thing about your wife's son, ukuthi you had to, because of his misbehavior, you had to move him to Gogo, and it was your agreement. And trust me, there's no judgment from my question, but I want you to give us your perspective, because I feel like sometimes, actually, let me explain why there's no judgment. I feel like sometimes we are so tough on each other, and some circumstances.
Let me explain that one, because I understand.
Eh? Oh,
Let me answer that one, because I understand. I found umfazi wami enendlu, ne? And then I told the base of an agreement ukuthi I'm not gonna touch this house. This house is umntwana wakho. Although the umntwana ahlala nogogo wakhe, but unendlu yakhe. You understand? Then izothi mayesekhulile uzobuyela endlini yakhe, which is a townhouse. Iqashisiwe for now, iyayenza imali. But then when he grew up, he also have his own house. It's not like ukuthi simkhiphile naye, he's not gonna even get shares into this business. But then I don't want umntwana ezo ngifuna isiko lakhe alazi. You understand? And then even though baba ke naye ufuna ukumvakashela makamvakashela, but then I didn't want to be involved endlini yomngami.
And what is the age gap between your biological children and her biological child?
I think umntwana wakhe una 22 now, if not 23.
Yeah.
And my kids is just 12 years. Sorry, 13 years.
Okay.
There's a huge gap, 10 years.
No, I think I like what I like what you're saying, because sometimes people, I'm finishing now, Mr. Musoni. Sometimes people can easily judge that. Oh, and even that thing, families will even say, oh, ingane yakhe, ingane zakhe ihlala endlini kodwa eyamfazi wakhe ixoshiwe, or ingane zakhe ihlala endlini kodwa ingane yendoda uyixoshile, not understanding ukuthi the dynamic of that situation. And someone even said in the comments, I won't be able to take care of your children if you kick up my child. But when you are sitting together, was it kicking out of the child, or is it saying this is the best situation for our son for now? And is the home open to this child? Ukuthi ekhaya engafika azovakasha, engafika azolala, engafika azobona ama-siblings wakhe, azobona uma wakhe. Yes, ngisho.
Yes. No, it's something like that. It's open to everyone. Whether he wants to come, he can come. Whether he okay. It's our like it's slightly late. It's very difficult because of. I'll be honest with you. He doesn't even want to see me. Unfortunately.
Experience that. You're not the only one. I mean, people will, that's why I say people will easily judge when you're going through it. But there are times where I think as families, it becomes so insane that people end up saying, let's take a moment, let's step back. Sike sibone ukuthi mhlawumbe umntwana uma ehlezi nogogo uright. And someone even said ukuthi, guys, perhaps it's best to leave your children with the grandparents. I'm not saying it's the best thing, because kids need their parents. Like Gina said, it's in the chat. People must actually prioritize their children, because a lot of single parents do not prioritize their children. But there are times where I think you should even not to Yazin. There was a cousin of mine who my aunt said, Yazin, Penny, who's my mom, her son. We stayed with my cousin, I think, for a good 5 years. Because my aunt just couldn't cope. And it happens. And that's why when it comes to a blended family situation, it becomes overly judged. Even I've even seen it in nuclear households where kuzothiwa le yodwa ingane izohlala laphayana until iziqonde ngoba umalume usibanibani is strict, or umalume usibanibani uyamuzwa, or umalume usibanibani bayazwana, so he can get through this child. And then after a couple of years, once the issues are resolved, he's not even talking to you. And when it gets to that point, passage endlini yakho manje nibanga ukuthi indoda
I'm proud of myself because Selina matric and then was via university. I was even paying for him the matric. I up until Nasnawi, but in a college, and he even chose which he want a private college because of Lama universities. He couldn't what do you call it, strike and all those things. We understand. And then I paid up until for 4 years, and then I was paying without even any complaint. That's why I'm saying I'm proud of myself, because of I think I played my part. Even now, in some supporter food, and he is still wearing impatla as expensive. I'm proud of myself. You understand? And then I understand him ukuthi vele angeke azangithande, and I didn't do that because of ngifuna ukuthi angithande. Then it's mhlawumbe izoba mdala, and then you will see ukuthi kwenzakalani.
Yeah, you keep on taking care of them, because that is your duty. When the moment you chose to marry someone onengani, that child becomes your child. How you deal with them and how you discipline them, that is also up to you. But the fact that you didn't completely let go, I wanted you to elaborate on this, because it's a very touchy topic, and a lot of us don't even know how to deal with it. Sila, I'm sure 130 people, probably 100 of us don't even know how to deal with this situation, because it happens. And it gets to a point where some people end up getting divorced. It gets to a point where some people end up losing their minds as parents because they don't know how to deal with it. So it's a very touchy and complex situation. And I truly appreciate your honesty and ukushare story sakho ngoba baningi abafundile ngalokhu mina nje, and it's not just boys, I think both boys and girls, um when they get over the age of 20, I think they also get to that point where they think they are adults now. No one can tell them now. Sengimdala, and then they feel like they're the man, but now they're not sure because they're still relying on parents. It happens. I mean, there was a time, I came back from varsity. For the whole 3 weeks, my mother wasn't talking to me, and I didn't understand. The whole 3 weeks, the woman would not talk to me because the first weekend, I decided, see, now I'm old. Rugby. I'm just gonna go and watch rugby with my friends. When I came back, my mom didn't talk to me because I'm Ilang.
Oh,
And Nakona puts in that age. Kona, there was a time where I had a meeting with my grandparents and her, and the answer from my grandparents was, "Usemdala yena uzama," but yes, yeah, understand as umzali. So there's also that juggle of umntwana uma esemdala trying to manage an adult child, because when you still see them as umntwana, but they're adults, and there are certain things that you need to let go of as well as umzali. So that's where kuba very tricky.
It's very tricky, very tricky.
Yes. No, thanks,
Blended.
Welcome,
Sisam.
Mrs. G. Thank
Hi.
you, Selebi. How are
Hi,
you?
Kulisela, hi. I'm so happy
Hi,
to
Sis
see you again. Yesterday I was with him as well on Brown's Live.
Oh, and I listen to Brown in the mornings as well sometimes after
Yes.
Uncle G. Yes,
And he touched on something. He was asking a question in reference to exactly how to manage a certain aspect of the relationship between an ex and a current. And I was saying, now I'm not in that situation. I'm speaking for the mommies that just decide, you know what? My youngest is 4 years or 5 until she becomes 18. I will bother with my heart when she's 18 and is not so reliant on me, because then she will be going to university, starting a life of her own and so on. So I would rather just wait, because your panel is always just telling me, Gina, kuningi, 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 sisi. And you're just never sure what you're gonna get. Like, just deal with what is on hand right now. And izinto zenhliziyo and partner and whatnot, you'll see them when they are all going off to university. That is now. So that's the card I'm playing. That's the game I'm playing. So, but I come from the Kuningi setup as well as a child, because there was a stepfather who was not there for his kids, and his kids longed for him, and my mom used to want to bring them over, but I don't know what the politics, when you're a child, you don't know what is going on, and you like these people, but you can't get close to them because you hardly ever see them. And then us in the house as well. My mom was not a kind person. I mean, I don't have a relationship with my mother. And I just want to say that thing of taking your kids to grannies, you understand it as an adult. As a child, we never understand it. I was raised by grannies, I was raised by relatives, and especially when she got married, because now it's like kuthandwa aba balotata abantwana, mna andithandwa, mna kutheni why couldn't you stay with my father? Why is he's putting you through the most, but you say you're staying with him because he's the father of your children? So what was so why couldn't, for me in my case, there was a point where in their relationship it was decided that he would never see me again. So I was so abandoned. I was not treated well with my mom, a very abusive relationship, and it's a wound that has taken me up to this point. And even now, as I say, I don't have a relationship with my mother because I know that I don't know when I would be ready to open that wound and to understand things from her side. I'm not ready. I've had lots of things to work through and lots of things to heal, and I feel like Yazin, I've done enough, and I'm tired now. I can't at this point take on more responsibility. But my point is that it's taken. I'm 48 years old, and you see that I'm working on things that happened when I was 10. I'm 48 years old. So for my children, I know that there are things that I have done with their father in this relationship that, my daughter, my 17-year-old, she said to me yesterday, we were talking about her dad, and we were talking about results. She was showing me her results. She was excited and so on. And then I don't know how we touched on her dad. I was talking about the fact that I don't want you to go through life trying to impress me. And I especially don't want you to go through life looking for your dad's approval. And I said to her, because I know sometimes for the longest time, she blamed herself for not being born a boy. Because if she had been born a boy as a firstborn, he wouldn't have lived, because her dad really wanted a boy. So I have 3 girls with him. So it's taken me a long time to work with her on that. And for her to understand, it's almost like the fact that I blamed myself for my partner cheating. She was blaming him for abandoning. She was blaming herself for abandoning us because she was born the wrong gender. You understand how deep these wounds go that we inflict on our children. So now you come as a mother, me, and I say, no, this person loves me and he looks like he loves my children, but I'm not thinking about the relationship dynamics that are going to happen subsequent to me making this decision and bringing this person home. Because I know the kind of man their father is. There are already so many wounds that have been inflicted by myself and by him on our children that I am working in isolation to fix with therapists and so on. But he doesn't understand the whole therapy thing. So it's always like, if we were to go there, I would be hitting against a brick wall type of thing. So this is work I'm doing on my own, because he has no concept of the damage that has been committed. He has no grasp of it. He has no understanding. And I had to get to that point and understand that when it comes to this, don't even expect him to put in a hand, because he cannot understand it, because he doesn't understand his own.
Yeah.
You cannot own up to his own even. So for me, that is where now my children, when I look at them, when I say sometimes I can be so wrapped up in my own happiness and thinking that security is going to come from bringing a responsible man into the fold. They have a responsible man. He is their dad. Because what if I bring in a responsible man and he does like my stepfather, is a man up to a certain point, and then the one day he wakes up and he decides he wants me to see him naked. That was my experience with my stepfather. So I never saw that coming as a child. So I don't know when people change. I don't know when things might go wrong. I don't know if I might bring in someone who is not, who is undercover, a child, what. There are so many variables that are outside of my control when I bring in someone else into my fold. And so it was my decision that, no, I cannot like my children are not a handbag. I don't carry them wherever I go. When I decided to have children, as irresponsible as my choices may have been when I made them when I was very young, for example, with my son who's 25. And I remember how that transition was when I decided that I wanted to get married to my husband. My child didn't have a decision in it. And I remember how difficult that transition was for him. And we had a conversation. He's 25 now. I think he was 21 when we had a conversation. And he was like, "But Mommy, you used to let Daddy hit me and you would say nothing." Now he doesn't know that the reason why the beating stopped is because my husband at the time had to choose between continuing the way he was continuing, which I was fighting every day behind closed doors, or have me leave him with my child, because I would not have my child raised like that. I don't want my child raised in violence. If he cannot speak, then leave the raising of the children to me, which is exactly what he did. He chose to stay and leave the raising of the children to me until he could get himself to a point where he could communicate his feelings. Because I was like, I was beaten. I chose the route that I would learn to use my mouth. I would acquire the skills to use my mouth. I'm not saying that, I'm judging people who discipline the kids by beating them until they faint. I don't know. That is for you and the law and God. But that is not something that I'm going to have in my house. That was done to me. I have scars on my head. I would not do that to my children.
Gina,
So
is it not,
you,
I just
you
come
can equally choose that for your children.
I just wanted to ask you, is it not that you perhaps attracted that because it was constant, like how they say laws of attraction, like if
Let
something
me
is
tell you,
constantly on your mind, then as much as you've said, because I've experienced it myself, where you've said to yourself, I'm not going to end up in a situation like this. You prepare yourself, but then you're not sure because of the scars are not healed. You're still walking with that scar. So what you attract is that when people see you, they still see that scarred person.
let,
So they
let me
will
tell
come
you,
to you.
sis. Let me tell you, sis. You attract what you are familiar with.
Yes.
You attract what you're familiar
Until
with,
you heal.
or rather not attract, because you attract everything. Let us say that you are a candle. You will attract the good things around the candle, and you will attract the moths and everything else.
Yes. Yes.
You attract everything. But your brokenness, your level of brokenness or your level of healing will feel pulled towards whatever it identifies. When you are a healed person, you will be pulled towards healed people. When you are broken and in trauma, you will connect to the trauma in another. So that's how it works. So I understand exactly what you're saying. It's not that you attract one particular type of people, but you choose.
You will
Out of
choose.
all these
Yes.
people, you will
Out of the
choose the thing that
list.
feels familiar.
Right?
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now these are the things that I've learned through my healing in the last 3.5 years of being divorced and having gone through a healing journey and all of these things. I understand why I did the things I did. And hence, I can look at my life now with very clear glasses, and also not bank things on hope and prayer alone, because it's not as if we were not praying. It's not as if we were not hoping. But still, we went and we made the decisions according to the content of our hearts, which was trauma, and content of our minds. We hooked with traumatic people, with traumatized people. So, but now I'm in a point whereby I can identify trauma in others and say, no, thank you. I don't want to add more. I am working on fixing. And from this moment on, whatever happens with my kids, I want them to focus on healing what was broken during the divorce, and whatever else it is, things that come up where you feel neglected because your parents are not always there, where you're working on your relationships. I want that for my kids. So I send them through therapy. We speak all the time. Like I said, for example, the reason why my daughter had this conversation with me yesterday, and I was talking to her about it, is because we talk about these things, the good and the bad about me. We talk about the things that I've done badly. I ask them to write letters when they are upset, and I read the letters, and then we sit and talk. Yesterday we had an incident with her middle sister because of certain things that have been happening at school. I called the dad because I said, okay, the situation is dire. We need to sit and have a conversation because you are also included in here. She's terrified when it comes to you because of the synthesis. And he came. He was here for like 2-3 hours. And when he had spent time with them, he called me down and he said, okay, what do we do? This is what I want to focus on creating for my kids until they leave my home. Because I know he cannot handle the dynamics of another individual coming in. And people will say, no, but you can't be dead now because of you have children or because your ex can't let go. I have to make choices about what is important to me. For me, the well-being of my children is very important, and peace is very important. And for my kids, while they are here, that equilibrium is very important for me to maintain. That's what I choose. And I'm not saying people who have chosen differently are wrong or whatever, but this is my priority. Because I know I missed that in childhood. This is the one thing that I wanted. I wanted a parent that would be there for me. I want to be there for my children.
My mom was similar to you. My mom was also, she chose to be with us till the very end. She always chose us. Not to the very end. My mom is still well alive, guys. But I'm just saying now that we are older, my brother and I are older, and we're working, and nothing takes away from that. But I think it's how you go back to how I started the live, where I said, Uguti, assess your situation and where you are as a family before you decide to bring someone in. It is very crucial that you do that. Assess your situation, because sometimes people are labeled as evil step parents. Meanwhile, you are taking people and bringing them into your family, and how your family dynamic is. This person is not going to cope. This person is not going to be able to handle it. And yet you still want to bring the poor man or woman into this family. Meanwhile, you're bringing them there to break them. So it's also critical to do that. Yes.
Sis, and sis, I think people don't realize that just because you have the right to something does not mean it will turn out that way, as long as that thing is not solely dependent on you. So let me say that I say, no, I have a right to have a husband. I have a right to a love life. And then I bring this person in. I have no control over how my ex is going, or how toxic or not toxic he's going to be. But knowing him, I know where I can bank on, put my money on. So it's important for people to know that, yes, just because we have a right to something, it doesn't mean that other people feel that we are entitled to it and they will cooperate. So you have to be very clear. You have to be honest with yourself. Am I in a position whereby, when I look at, for example, the material benefits of my children, would I be able to, and this is me being real, would I be able to carry the same lifestyle for my children that they are currently enjoying with both their parents in their lives? Because if my children are used to going to particular places, for example, if instead of going to Oates Warren for school tours, they going, for example, because daddy can say, yes, no, sign up for the Egypt tour. Am I going to be able to do that for my child? Besides that, I come from a place of not knowing my dad. It's very important for me that my children have their father in their lives in whatever capacity that they can. So I was honest with myself, and I sat down, I said, what concessions do I have to make in order to make this happen as painlessly as possible? And this is what I've taken, that I know, okay, I will not always be raising my children in the same house. They will leave the nest. I'm happy to wait for the time, because it's not like the dating pool has diamonds to offer at the moment. It's not like it's offering heaven and the pearly gates and the golden streets. What am I letting my children suffer for?
Gina, you always just put it out there just as it is. KK will agree, yes, because she's also followed the same stance as well. Uguti, let me raise my children. And I have a few friends who've done the same thing, who said, let me raise my children and do what I can for my children. Once my children are grown, only then I will be able to see what the dating field has for me. And maybe you'll just have someone to grow old together, like Oprah has with her man, and you just grow old together and you live life together. Right, and it's not like you don't see people, but you just don't want someone in your house.
Exactly. And when I'm ready to, I think I would say, in terms of relationship readiness, I'm looking for somebody who offers classes in relationship readiness, because before I even venture out. That's what I want. Relationship readiness classes, guys, because I feel like my walls are up so high. I need somebody to help me navigate them. And then I would be happy to be with someone where we are living our separate lives and we are just happy in happy moments together, and that's it. The element of, especially if they have children, please let your children be my age. I don't want children that are like 5 years old. Oh my God, I can't do this child raising again. I'm sorry.
Good morning, family.
Morning, Rakadi. You know, there are two gentlemen who've made requests, but my problem is I need to close.
I know. I saw the request and I'm like, okay, if she's taking requests, I'll pause and I'll come at the end.
So let me bring them in, but I will
Okay.
bring you in literally 1 minute, guys, each. I will time you. Senzo or Nosianda, 1 minute each, and then Rakadi will close for us. Then we go. Gina,
Yes,
I
and
always find your perspective so refreshing. So refreshing.
I just
I
wanted
thank
to
you.
say to Gina, on the course of relationship readiness or back in them jolo scene something, that I've realized, and let's take it to Oprah's situation
Yes.
again. I've realized that Lana Kwa Know Your Worth Highway.
Uh-huh.
Once you go there, the off ramp becomes difficult because now you know where you are going. If you
Baby.
take a wrong off ramp, it's very easy to come back onto the on ramp because you can tell that this off ramp, it's not just a detour to take me to Polokwane, it's actually taking me to Mafikeng and I'm going to Polokwane. And therefore, it's easy for you to come back on the road. The unfortunate thing is that while you are building up on that frequency of getting a like minded partner and a person that is like you in your healed state, it's not everybody on the other side that is doing the work like we are doing.
Yes.
You look at how many therapists will tell you on their statistics of men that are coming for counseling. In my own practice at the moment, I'm literally sitting at 10 to 15% of men coming in, and I've got the rest as women. And now, if we look at that ratio, we
It's
also
like the
understand that our
dentist stats.
yeah, for me, it's scary stats. But even now, for my male colleagues, because at first I thought, okay, I know I wanted to help men because of my view of how you get treated by them when they don't know themselves. And for us, we can be vulnerable to not know ourselves, go in, but for those that are willing to work on themselves, you quickly come back into your roots and find yourself. And then now you want to partner with people that are the same. So I thought, you know what, we will do this matchmaking thing. Bring the guys that are coming to you. I'll bring the girls that are coming to me. Then let's have the workshops. And I mean, who knows what will come out of that workshop?
Maybe
And
my
then they said,
statement is there.
yeah, and then they said we're sitting with the same statistics. So good luck in that effort. So when you look at Oprah and how she managed to do it, she said she could see that Stedman's understanding of marriage is going to want to change who she is. So she stepped out of the marriage thing. They were okay, but she could sense, she could hear the comments, she understood what his expectation of him for her would be. And therefore, she opted not to go that direction. Hence, they decided to do that. Mashlalisane in your house and my house, and we visit each other depending on who has more food this week, who cooked more, who tried a new recipe, or who was closer to the event. But at the end of the day, yes, now at the later years, they're staying together, but because she knew that she's not in her youth, where she was expected to do certain things, now she understands where his state is at. But still, she didn't opt for marriage because she understood what mindset he has and how it will change their relationship the minute she says, you know what, marriage certificate, here you are now Oprah Stedman. But I guess let me pause and give the two gentlemen a chance because we still want to work with them. We still are open to play around with them. And therefore, we hope that they're part of the 10% and will encourage them to bring more people
Yes.
into
Yes.
therapy that is not
Yes.
part of the 10%.
Yes.
When you say that about Oprah, I'm reminded that Vele, it's also a way of setting up a boundary because if I go this step, and he had to agree, because I'm not gonna get married. Are you willing to stay with me, Singa Shadil? Because obviously she knew if I cross this boundary, things are gonna go south. But let me move to Senzo and Sianda. Senzo, Rachadi, Ulerato, no Gina, our regulars, but Ulerato usually closes the lives for us, and she basically rounds off everything for us, like in terms of the learnings and how do we move forward. So that's why I added Lerato, but I've given you, let me say, 2 minutes max each to just close off your I mean, to add your inputs to the topic. Sis Gina, thank you so much for your insights. Like I always say, it's always so refreshing to hear honest opinions where someone is just not what you call this, holding back and giving it to us as is, because sometimes when we try to be too diplomatic, the message doesn't sink in and it doesn't get across clearly. And that's what I actually really like about this platform. Even though when those type of comments come up, I have to sort of like explain it again. No, it's not actually bad. It's not, there's nothing wrong with doing things a certain way, because you need to understand yourself. You need to understand your situation. And the moment you become honest, what do you call it, brutally honest with yourself and where you are in life, that's when you actually leave very little room to go around hurting other people. Like they say, hurt people hurt others. And if you're not aware and you blindsided, is it being blindsighted? I'm not going to say sighted, but if you don't see where you're going or what's happening around you, or you just put shutters so that you don't see what's happening around you, you're actually bringing in a misconception to what your life is. And when someone else comes in, especially when they come in and they're very close to you, they start to see those cracks. And when they do, you become defensive. Senzo, I'll start with you and then I'll go to Sianda. 2 minutes. I'm sorry to give you limited time, but I'm meant to be doing other things right now.
I'm mute. Okay. I'm muted. No, I'm just Sanbona, guys. Hello. I've got 2 minutes, so I'm not going to even introduce myself. But what I wanted to say is that I'm so pleased to see that you guys are thinking like that, because some of us, we want to be there for our kids, but our baby mothers are not allowing us to be there for our kids, and we're going to be looking at like baba abangekho empilweni zengane zabo, and it's not nice. It's not something that you wake up in the morning and feel proud of yourself. Ikwenza ukuthi uyifile uyibone ukuthi nje wena mina, like, this is my only child and I'm not going to have another child. I know. So ingane yami yokuqala lena, but umama wakhona akafuni, and naye futhi she's not even there in the picture. So uma ngabe mina ngizama ukuthi ngenze ama-means, it's useless for me to send money to a certain person and then that person doesn't, mangibona ingane ngiyibone ayinazo impahla all of those things. Like, I just wanted to experience ukuthi ukusho ukuthi some of the times ukuthi as fathers we are trying our best to be there, but where are we becoming ukuthi sikhona njengobaba, and then ingane mawuthi like I can't even see my child. My child is like 11 years old. Like the last year, because I'm in America manje, and now like there's so many things that I wish I had more time to explain what I wanted to say. But I'm just gonna say, Guti, I'm thankful that you guys are saying such different things, because I thought wonke umuntu wesifazane nje akafune muntu, or maybe nifuna ukuyikhulisela ingane, and then whatsoever mhlawumbe uma sebekhulile bena-18 ngibona sebezoyidecidela because you don't want to see us because sahlukana at some point. So this is what I wanted to say.
Sure. This goes back to what Mr. Mtswening was saying earlier. Guti, some people will blame, they'll say, because you left me, you can't see your children. Once the relationship with me is over, the relationship with your children is over, which is actually not the right mindset to have. Yes, mhlambe fale nakhona nje shame mhlambe nakhona lento idinga kuthiwa yini lento le uzohamba uye e-Union Building. You can't call it by name on this app.
Yeah.
It's still a Union Building, you couldn't lento, because I actually wish I had the stats of how many fathers are actually experiencing this, because you are not the only one. I was in Miss K's live a few weeks ago. I think it was around June. It was actually on Father's Day, and she had more than 15 men or 10 men come up on the live saying, I don't have access to my child. Omunye, even after the mother has passed on, kuzothiwa ugogo uyanqaba nomntwana. But there's the court system. Have you tried the court system, Sense?
I did. You know what? The court system when it comes to South Africa, they always favoring the umama, and I've got so many things that I can put on ukuthi ngisho ukuthi naye akekho naye uhlala nogogo. Akekho umntwana as much as ogogo nathi sakhuliswa ogogo, but still I've got babakhuliswa ogogo because they didn't have omama bebengekho bashona, you know. And uma ngabe mina ngikhona njengoba ubaba ngimazi, so I want to be there for my child, and especially ngane yomfana, so I want to be there for my child. And eSouth Africa bafike bekutshela nje moya like government situations bazotshela ukuthi hayi you're not gonna win wena, phuma yeka, leave it, you know, you're not gonna win because yonke into yase-South Africa is favoring umuntu wesifazane. And mangithi umuntu wesifazane, okay, it's fine, mhlasimpe kube bengimsukela ngithi mina yena uhlezi kahle nengane, but naye kahlali nengane. So I don't want my child ukuthi ihlale nogogo while I can do better things for him. I'm a teacher, so bezofunda la engisebenza khona, I take him home, yonke into. There's so many things nje, but
So when you wanted to relocate to America with your son?
no. That time I wasn't even thinking of America. I was thinking of Joburg because umntana behlala eKZN.
Umama ehlalaphi?
Ehlala ePretoria.
Yabo yona into ebuye ibe yinkinga, yes. But mina iyangixaka lento because I had a friend who was a lawyer. Well, I still have lawyer friends, but I had a particular friend who was a lawyer. And at that time, Nami, my situation was a bit tricky. But he was telling me, Uguti, if you decide, like my child is in KZN, if my child is in KZN and the dad is in KZN, then the court can actually say, no, umntwana akahlale no baba wakhe if ubaba efuna. So now you're in America, it's a different story. But I think in that time, you just needed the right type of support because you could afford, if she can't stay with the child, then that's okay. Because by taking umntwana kugogo, she's actually shown ukuthi yena she has some 20 restrictions in terms of staying with umntwana, and you have to just then go to court and prove ukuthi wena you don't have restrictions like she does, and you can take care of umntwana in Joburg with you because you're both in Joburg. And you could have then motivated because you're both in Gauteng, it's actually easier for both of you to have access
Access to the child. That was my biggest thingy.
Most times you would have won that because ayikho court evuma ukuthi umntwana ahlale nogogo over their parent. That unless if mhlawumbe kuzoqanjwa amanga ke kuthiwa you were doing things or whatever, but if there's no stories told and people stick to the truth, there's no way that the court would have said no to that. But I guess you didn't have the right support. But when you come back to South Africa, it's something that you should consider. We will still be here. I will, I can just arrange a few people abangakusiza ukuthi if when you want to, not ukuthi zoye court now, but just to advise.
Yeah, but just to advise,
a lot of people here have had an experience or the other, and they may be able to assist on just how to maneuver the situation because most times we don't even know our rights.
Yeah, because one thing that is bothering me now, the biggest thing that is bothering me now, after we normal market, senze zonke izinto like I wanted ukuthi umntwana be right. After that, I haven't spoken to my son. No one answering my calls. It's been 6 months. 6 months.
Jack.
And I even stopped sending money to him or paying his school fees because I don't know what's going on. And it doesn't sit well with me because ayikho into emnandi ebuhlungu njengokuthi umntwana wakho uyamazi ukuthi ukhona, and our school fees is the first time in my life ukuthi ngingakwazi umkhokhela i-school fees ngingamazi ukuthi ngingakwazi ngisho ukukhuluma naye. No one is answering my calls. But then,
I don't even.
um,
Someone is saying start the process now. I don't know how you would do that because most times in South Africa you have to go in person to court.
interesting. Yeah, that's the problem.
Otherwise, against telephonically or through the phone, telephonically or via email. You literally need
So
to.
the advice that I got that I need to contact the principal and ask her, Uguti, what is the school fees? Because I don't want to stop paying for him at schooling, you
Nazo.
know, because it's my inganyami, and I'm not going to stop supporting him as much as I'm no longer sending the money that I used to send on the side, Gumamaki, because very being in the Nix. Bengithi bangimlanda like last year mina ngifike la America in July last year like I'm making a year like America bengimlanda akanampahla akanaleaks futhi ngiqala futhi ngithenga phansi kade ngimsendele
Well,
about 3000.
Senzo, can I just cut you there? You know, some of these things they are portrayed. You'll find that because it's you, they'll just send the child with no proper clothes because the money you're sending is not enough. You can understand? So those things, especially when you're dealing with people who are like that, they just understand that those are the dynamics. But I don't think she would not be taking care of Umtuan. And then there's another question, and this is the last one I'm tackling with you. Are you on the birth certificate? Did you get an unabridged certificate?
No, my name is there on the birth certificate.
Okay. KK, then maybe if you want to add more, then add more on the chat in terms of advice, because I think she might understand the situation a bit better when you are out of the country. But continue, find out, yes, if you know which school the child is going to, then find out which school they're going to, try and put
No, I
money.
know, I
But
know.
I would still, but keeper sometimes, I would still say, even if it means you continue to send money to their mom, I don't think ukuthi uyayiva imali. But mhlambe nje just to spite you umuntu uzosenda ingane kweni ingagqokile iy'mpahla lezi wena oy'thengile. Baze bayimoshe bayidamage iy'mpahla lezi oy'thengile ukuthi uthenga iy'mpahla ey'cheap. So if you're dealing with someone who's not at peace, you will experience
Yeah.
like that. I want to cut you, but I feel bad, but I have to.
Okay, no, 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 no. You can. It's fine. I'm
Tianda?
fine.
Sanibonani,
Yebo.
ngiyangizwa?
Yebo siyakuzwa.
Okay. Ngithanda ukunibingelela nonke. Thank you to everybody for creating a platform to have this conversation. So I wanted to share my experience as a child who was raised in a blended family and how that ended up creating a lot of psychological difficulties for me because it's quite traumatic for a child. And so I think the perspective can be helpful to especially the women out there so they know when they are weighing their options, what they are choosing between, right? So for me, my parents got married when they were young. Sadly, 2 years later, my dad passed on. Okay, so now my mom was left with me, and she obviously had to raise me and but she was still a human being, right? She's 28 or something. She needs love, nice. She craves a relationship with another adult. So being an African woman, it's hard to find a man who will still love you when you are in that position, right? But she was able to find a man. And long story short, like most African men, he did not view me as his problem, right? Like he was like he loved my mom and they were happy. I could see them together, they were happy. But he literally like everything in his behavior, you could see that like I was not his concern, right? So for me, that was a very harmful experience for me growing up because it created such deep abandonment and rejection wounds. And I'm still in therapy today because, like, when a child is developing, they don't only have physical needs, like, they have psychological needs and emotional needs, like love, belonging, acceptance, bonding, right? So for me, I want the women who are here to understand that their children one day they will grow up. And if if they are unable to find a partner that will love and make their children feel safe and truly accept them, not just about money, then their children are gonna hold them accountable. But besides even that, they're going to like they're going to develop psychological problems because children have psychological and emotional needs to grow up. So that was my story, guys. I hope you learned something from it.
Definitely, definitely. I think it's so aligned with what Usis G was saying. Oguti, see how these things impact your children before you decide who you'll be in a relationship. See the dynamics of your family that you currently have. Because as much as yes, the other person, some people say no, my ex is not my family. For the mere fact that you have a child together, you have to engage, and you're raising a child together, co-parenting together. They are somewhat part of your life. You're just no longer romantically involved, but you need to work out how you raise this child amicably together. So, yeah, Sana adds on to what G was saying, Guti. It's emotionally, mentally, physically, our kids need us. They are not accessories to our lives. And I'm not saying, when I'm saying this, I'm not saying I'm doing a perfect job. You know, from this live, there is so much learning that I'm taking away, even myself. You know, there are areas where I'm like, this is an area of improvement for myself, you know, because there's no guideline to parenting. There's no guideline for relationships. You know, even those who seem to be getting it right in our eyes, their method may not work for you because each human being, each individual is so unique and each circumstance is so unique and requires a unique approach. So that's why when we have so many different people coming in, giving us their perspective, giving us their experience, it actually, there's little bits and pieces you can take away from each person's story that will then provide a consolidated solution for you. You cannot take Uzama's story and say that's Bible because it works for her. What works for Uzama may not work for you. So that's why I had to open up. Today's session is actually a sequel to a session we had 2 weeks ago where we're talking about the relationship between a co-parent and a bio-parent. And then to add on, I spoke about the what you call this, the responsibilities, the roles and influences that each one has, which is your children, your biological children and your stepchildren, the step parents in the relationship and the biological parents. You know, I'll even go back to what Usenzo was saying earlier, Uguti, his complication and his struggle. There are men too who will cause similar struggles for their exes because they're not ready to move on. Because, and even when they have moved on, they've just said, because according to them, you have ruined their life because this is not how they expected their life to become and to look like. And now they have to reconfigure their lives. And if I have to reconfigure my life and not have the life that I thought I was going to have with you, then so will you not have that, because they know your children bring you joy. They know your pride and joy are your children. We know how much, you know, you hear it so much. And a woman of today knows that men take pride in being responsible fathers. So when you take that away from them, you still then now putting them in that bracket of being a deadbeat dad, a dad who's unable to take care of his children. Meanwhile, you know that you've blocked this man from seeing his child. Meanwhile, you know you have blocked the mother of your children from seeing their kids. One thing that I can even comment from Umselego earlier, Uguti, as much as yes, his ex could not afford certain things, but there was still access and there was still some sort of, I'll say, an unwritten, maybe it's written, but they didn't have to go through the legal system, an unwritten parenting plan between him and his ex and his wife, where they are in agreement. This is how we're going to do things. This is what will work. And this is what will be best for all these children that are in this family. It's very important that we be open and honest about this. And some of the decisions, yes, they hurt, but then when I go back to Gina as well, I really think we undermine the impact of therapy. Someone even said on one of my posts that therapy is just another money-making scheme. those people are just seeing you to make money. Yes, people study so that they can make a living out of psychology, out of what's the other one? Psycho.
Psychiatry.
What was the other one? Psychiatry, yes.
Psychiatry.
Psychiatry. Yes, psychology and psychiatry. People go and study these things to make a living, but not everyone who becomes a psychiatrist or a psychologist is only doing it for the money. Some of them, it's actually their purpose, it's their, and they're doing it because they know that they're doing it for the greater good. So let's not downplay psychology. It really is impactful. For Ujina, we've even seen that it's actually opened up a lot of conversations which she wouldn't have been able to get to with her children, understanding how they felt and the healing journey for her children. And this is the biggest benefit. It starts at an early stage. These kids are not going to be 40 like us, 48, 50 like us, still, and saying that maybe you sound like you're in your early 30s, mid 20s, mid 20s to maybe 30. I think, you know, you you're not gonna get to your late 20s and you're not sure of who you are and what is impacting me and where does my trauma come from, because you're already having those conversations and you're starting your healing journey early. So I would really recommend that we do that for ourselves and for our kids. So I'll move on to Rahadi to wrap up for us. Give us those nuggets and takeaways for the day.
Thank you, my sweetie. You do know I was late.
I know.
Because I logged in, I think around, when did
I
you
thought
start?
you were early today. Hey,
I was early, and then I'm there sleeping, and then I wake up like, I think just when it was close to 9 o'clock. But I'm good. I'm here. And I just want to latch onto the comment that you just said now about how important therapy is. Because, and I'll just tell you a little story. One of my nieces-in-law was now deciding to divorce, and then in that panel they call, of course, my ex is one of the younger brothers of the dead, so he comes through, and now my ex says to her, you know what, I would do anything if I were you to save my marriage, because I think I fought, but I didn't, give it a good fight. That's why it ended where it was. So the child asks, Baba Mngani, what is it you didn't do that I should know that I include in this process to save my marriage? Because I guess I didn't tell my story to everyone. And the uncle said, I don't know, but I feel it wasn't enough. So her deal breaker that wouldn't get them back together with her husband would be if the husband doesn't go to therapy, because she insisted that the only thing that will save my marriage is when he is willing to go to therapy and he works on himself such that the two of us can travel this road together. And then my ex said to her, hey, you really like this therapy thing, ne? You really trust this therapy thing. So this is when, of course, she closed the loop with me just to check, did you guys go to therapy? Because I asked him if he did everything, and he said he did everything, but he doesn't know what is it else he was supposed to do, but he felt he wasn't doing enough. And I said to her, it is that therapy thing that also was my deal breaker, because I was like, if you're not going for therapy, we're not doing this. And a year later, he had only been to 2 sessions of therapy, but he wasn't walking the talk that he was talking after the 2 sessions of therapy. So sometimes we downplay this therapy thing because it helps us look at the puzzle. And I think one of the things that you mentioned when Gina was talking was about always gravitating to the familiar, because I don't want to call it attracting, because now there's a whole commercial vibe on law of attraction. And sometimes we shy away from exploring things that are made to be commercial. So sometimes if they're good, we never go there. It's like leaving your traditional church to go to a charismatic church. But when you've seen 3 churches being money-making schemes. Now you give it a one blanket approach and you no longer go and actually explore what is it that you wanted to explore. But in all honesty, if we are not looking at our patterns, because therapy helps you look at your patterns. If we're not looking at our patterns, what happened to us as children will continue to happen to our children, and they will continue to happen to us as adults in other areas of our lives. And for people who don't understand trauma and the impact that it does to affect the rest of your life, you may not be in a position to even protect your children. I mean, look at it, Zama. There are probably many of our mother's age women that never remarried. But the things that happened to us that they were trying to avoid being done by the stepfathers, they still happened with the uncles and whatever, with the bosses when some of the women started working. Those things, if they are a pattern and they then become your fear, sometimes your fear would be so strong on your kids that it actually does happen on your kids because it's your personal fear. And I know that it's a topic for another day. It goes deeper. We'll have to unpack it. But quite frankly, if you can take the concept and work on yourself to understand the pattern, if you always been walking forward and knowing how you walk is walking forward, not backwards, you will still have to put in some work to try and walk backwards. There are a lot of things you would have to learn in the process. And I think where you were talking about taking children out of the marital home after you get married for the second time to go stay with a relative or grandmother or whatever, there could be many perceptions that come through and judgments like the discussion was taking. But sometimes we want to be too harsh on blended families and look at it from even nucleus families. When your parents were too busy, they will take you to your grandparents because maybe mom is a nurse, dad is a policeman, and now, you know, their schedules are now running parallel and stuff like that. They will still take you to grandma. Some of us, our parents felt fit that when we are teenagers finding ourselves wanting to fight them back and whatever, we go to boarding school because they understand that's when you are individuating and now, you know, getting your own boundaries, having your own ideas, forcing your way to be heard because our parents had that style of not wanting to hear us. And part of me is quite sad that we still continue in that, where we're not hearing our children, where we're making decisions for them, because this is where we're actually creating the wound for our kids. You know, kids create wounds from absolutely nothing. Like I think I narrated the other day that my son came because I didn't want to buy him an Xbox game. And he came and said, yeah, when I realized that you never loved me. So I'm like, oh, okay, why didn't I love you? It's like, because you never married my dad. And I was like, no, I was actually married to the dude before you were even born. And now, to his surprise, that we were married because I left the marriage while he was still very young. And you see, he can create something. If I had blocked him from saying, hey, I love you, you don't understand everything that I do for you, I wouldn't have understand where that emanated from. But it seems as if we still have that thing of continuing to stop our kids from expressing themselves. And sometimes even if we delay being married, if we wait for them to go to varsity and then we start dating at that time, if we're still not hearing them, we don't understand the trauma that we have caused them, even in not getting married, because sometimes they look at you that you're not remarrying. If it's a girl, they're like, relationships are not good at all, I'm never getting married. Do you understand? It's those things. So I would encourage that we continuously communicate and also find a platform for our kids to get their own therapy where they can voice out, where they can learn to communicate and even start conversations with us, such that even if you took them to Gogo, you took them to boarding school, they will then come back to you and tell you their perception of what they think, because you think it's an opportunity. Maybe you took them to the best boarding school in South Africa where you're paying hundreds of thousands of rands, and you thinking it's an opportunity for her or him because you didn't get that opportunity, but only to find that they have another way of interpreting it. So I would say let's open up and communicate with our kids, but also let's look at our patterns, because some of those patterns that we ran away from marriages, they follow us to work. Like just this week, I was working with people that have toxic bosses, and the one question that I kept on asking was, have you thought of applying for another job? And because they've been so fixated on how horrible their situation is, they forgot that looking for another job is within their control. Looking at the pattern such that you don't go into a new work environment that is the same as the old, because chances are those that are going to like you on the panel are the bigger bullies than your boss, and that love you, that shower you with compliments, with comments. They'll speed up your what is this? They'll speed up the process, and in a week you have a contract. You probably even serve a shorter notice, and then voila, you just came out of the pan into the fire. So thank you, Nkulu. Appointment. Yes, they will appoint you quick, and then you get there 3 months later. They literally are there to crush your soul because you did not look at the pattern. So let's look at the pattern. Let's communicate with our kids. I know it's unheard of in our African culture, where we also date with our kids, because sometimes some of the kids, I've seen one of my friends whose daughter is a teenager. When she goes on coffee dates, picnics, whatever, they can do it together with the other guy when his kids are visiting. And then they will unpack him when they come back from the date. His interaction with his kids, was that too good to be true? Was he pretending? Was he really genuine? Because if sometimes, I think Dineo is very big on this. If sometimes we are not involving them in the choosing, this is where they fight back when this person is in the house. And now this is where they become problematic, because they're starting to have their own ideologies. So sometimes for them to give it a go ahead, it's also very important that we also involve them. They get to know the person. You also get to see them interact. They just don't interact when you guys are staying together. And I think for some of the men and women, one of our biggest wounds is no other woman or no other man is going to raise my child. And if that's your belief system, you might actually become a toxic co-parent. So maybe let's look at ourselves, let's look at our belief systems, because now this is a different angle altogether. And sometimes let's not take it for granted that we grew up in nucleus families, because some of our nucleus families were not the healthiest places to be at. And so let's open our minds to relearning and reparenting ourselves so that we can parent our children, and then we can open up to seeing how we can engage with those that are in blended families, and how we can start the blended families. And back at Gina's singles workshop, how to become dating ready. The unfortunate thing is, once you've worked on yourself and you started healing, trust me, the first date in 30 minutes of that coffee can tell you whether this is your person or not. And sometimes if it's not, maybe the second date will tell you. But I always say, at least in 3 months of engaging with that person before you actually even introduce them to anyone else, you will know how they think, you will understand the pattern, and of course you don't give away all your secrets of the kind of person you want, because we do know the imposters that will be there. So your idea for those 3 months is actually to observe. Do we say the same thing? Are we looking at life the same way? Do you have experiences that you understand what I mean by certain words? You can say family, and then that person's family is everyone, including those that live in Zambia and Ghana and Algeria, and we have to keep tabs of them. You family could have meant you, the nucleus that you're starting, and your parents and your siblings, and not the whole village. And so sometimes we take it for granted that we say the same words, like we say, I'm a Christian, and then another person says, I'm a Christian. So I like the questions that normally happens. It's like, okay, are you a Christian? Are you born again Christian. So I don't know the other layer after that, because those are the two that I've heard. Are you Christian? Are you born again Christian? And then maybe there are other layers in that. And then, are you Muslim? Are you from this country? Do you understand this ideology? Are you Buddhist? Are you, because at the end of the day, the unpacking helps us connect. And now we start to see what is the missing point that we didn't see. And I know some of our biggest fears is as women is dating people in the closet that don't want to come out. And I've got lady friends that after the divorce they decided to accept themselves and openly be lesbian. And now we normally sit there and laugh about it to say, can you imagine if there was no divorce and maybe we're under some religious cults that didn't want us to divorce, and you now like are stuck there, and now, like, can you understand the promiscuity? What is it that will happen when you're not open? If he's got older kids that are girls and they're coming through, the same pattern that men do when other people are not, like when they are in the closet, and then there are other guys, then there are other baba mnganis who are visiting a lot, and then he's always with the boys, and those things open us up to look at our patterns, because if you don't look at your pattern, ooh la 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 la, you literally also putting your kids in danger to just think that you'll be doing it better than the last time. So yeah, let's invest in our own personal growth, let's invest in our own healing. It doesn't come easy, and we also fight it when we have to heal out of the old wounds. But it can be done. It can be done. And hopefully, when we do off-ramp, we will be in Polokwane and not going to Mafike. We will reach our destination with the people that have been traveling with us, going to the same filling stations, listening to the same radio station, loving the same ideology, knowing when to take a break. And then when we get to Polokwane, we find that, hey, actually, we're coming to the same destination, and voila, we'll have bigger and happier blended families in the future. But yeah, that's my 2 cents input, knowing that I came in late. But yeah, I loved it. Thanks so much, Zama. I hope you'll have a third one, because you could tell that there are a lot of people that wanted to come in.
Right? Thank you, Rakadi. Thank you so much. We just off ramping to take a lot.
A toll-free route. So you're saying we, yeah.
And I get the pun, toll free. But thank you, Rakadi, for your insights. I always think, you leave people with something to look forward to, something they can take back home with them and start saying to themselves, okay, where am I? What do I need to do? What do I need to look out for? Is this working for me? Is it not working for me? Am I the problem, or is everyone the problem? And in most cases, the problem is with you, but then you may not be the cause of the problems, but there are things within yourself that you need to identify so that you are able to sort of deal and manage situations differently or better even.
And I didn't want to go before I think I speak to Senzo. I typed my comment and really would encourage him to put all his thinking caps, find all the advice that he can. There are many organizations, there are many men on this platform that also teach about how to go and make sure that you have access to your child. Sometimes it's not even going as far as the child staying with you, but just having access. Because just imagine the wound of that child where they're saying, but if I'm going through this, where's my dad? And if you've listened to Gina share on different platforms about her thinking as a child, this wouldn't have happened if my dad was not here, because if my dad was here, because there are these things that you tell yourself. And so he must do his best to engage with his child, because we also trying to reverse that wound that the kid will decide for themselves. Yes, we know that trauma is certainly not what happens to you, it's what you think happened to you. And that story is the one that the child runs with, because quite frankly, there is no reason why he cannot buy a cell phone for the child, she will charge, have a budget, their data. If at Gogo's place there's no Wi-Fi, because they now Gogos are my age, I get. So so if at Gogo's place there's no Wi-Fi, make sure that at least, even if it's weekly, when you do call the child, make sure that you engage with the child. You do a video call even if you are in the US. But if the mother and the grandmother don't want, you make sure that you go to court. The 2 weeks that you are here, the 3 weeks that you take leave and come to South Africa, make sure that those that you have appointed to fight the case on your behalf have cleared the way, such that when you get here, you even take leave on the weeks that you will be on leave and coming home, and then you get to have access to your child, because maybe in the future that child can have an opportunity to go study abroad, and you should be in talking terms. You should have a relationship with your child, because no person would also want to go live with you not knowing who you are. They only know the stories that they were told about you, and now if it's a she or he, they have created their own idea of who you are, and because of what they've been fed. So really, really, really do your best and fight. I know the Mutwening said the law is fair, the system is biased because it's got people. But I think now the patterns are starting to change. We know the behavior of women. We know that, yes, the law automates us as primary caregivers. But sometimes if we've got proof that we cannot be and we are not healthy parents, the child can get a different opportunity. So can the men not take it for granted? Yes, we know it's easy because, you've got this thing, yokungala, man. I don't know what you call it in Zulu. And yeah, okunquba. But go you go into your corner and then you just let it be. But that's you going back to the patterns of what you know. And to try the new pattern of being a father that fights for access may be a new thing for you. And so don't be in the energy of the other fathers, which are many, that just decides, I'll wait until the child is 18. But at 18, the damage has already been done. So can we just fight for our kids?
Sorry.
Okay.
It's difficult to build a relationship with your father from the age of 18. It's very difficult.
Yes.
So the sooner, the better.
Thank you, my sweetie. Thank you. I think you deserve a weekend, my love. So you can close.
Right. Yes, ukuduba, niyaduba. Amadoda aduba.
Okay, thank you.
Amadoda aduba too much. And I think it's because, I think it's also the narrative yokuthi a man shouldn't be speaking too much. Indoda kumele iqophisane kakhulu, ngesiZulu kuthiwa ingaqophisani kakhulu nomuntu wesifazane indoda. Women are the talkers, men should just be silenced. And I think that's what makes it so difficult for men to fight, because then you are going back and forth and you're fighting a woman. And culturally, and I think in most African cultures, we're not meant to be going back and forth amongst each other. I'd like to thank you all for joining. This topic, it's a very sensitive one. There's also side issues that popped up today. Sorry, no, I won't be able to take you now because I'm closing. We had a lot of, different side topics coming up, topics like actually moving on as a single person or a single parent. How do you move on? How do you get into a relationship? I think that's something that we, that can be spoken about. I know we always touch on it, how do you know that this person is a good person? It always comes up, because when you now think of the partner, especially when you start to hear the stories, the partner that you bring in that is now not good to your children. And it's like, what did I see? This whole time, and you think of the partner that you chose and you ended up having children with, or married and ended up having children with, and now this person is imposing traumas on your child, and there's nothing you can do about it, and this is not what you wanted your children to experience. Bantu say udubile kodwa lerato. What's why distraction? I'm wondering, why is everyone laughing? Yes, guys, you need to, I think it needs time, and I think you need to give yourself time. Like I was saying, even around the relationship where you find that your stepchild, because they've got unresolved emotions. I wanted to go to that actually, Mselego, earlier. Uguti, sometimes it's because your stepchild has unresolved emotional, psychological issues that they're dealing with. And then no matter what you try to do to connect with this child, it won't work. And you get to a point where you're like, okay, you can, move out. Especially for Sumtano Mesemdala. Rahadi even said, even as teens in a nuclear household, parents will say, certain children should go to boarding school. My grandparents did the same thing. Certain kids ended up in boarding school. Not like my mom, as I don't know, like she's a saint according to my grandmother. She's a saint of a child. But my mom was sent to boarding school, but she was sent to boarding school for opportunity, because she was sent to a school that was slightly better, where she could, get more focused attention from the teachers and what. And I think my grand took half of the kids to that school. If you're from KZN, it's St. Francis College. And then the other half of the kids went to the schools in the area. So it's important for us to understand that society will also always be difficult on us in blended families. Things that normally happen in nuclear households will always, and I don't know how we break the stigma, will always be seen as so negative. They will always be seen as negative. There's an instance, even when your stepchild misbehaves or says something to you, you'll take it 10 times worse than what your own biological child would say. They would say the exact same thing with the exact same attitude. And the outcome of that would be you think your stepchild is evil or doesn't love you or doesn't care for you. But when your biological child says the same thing, you would take that and you think that, okay, uzodlula kuyona. And ile nto yokuthi vele ngumzali wakhe angiyindawo. And we need to now channel that same energy when it comes to our stepchildren. Okusalayo ngumzali wakho. Noma ungahamba uthini, so long as I'm with your mom or dad, even if kuthiwa siyahlukana sengikhulisile, I know who you are. So it's not easy. It's not easy at all to raise kids in a blended household, but it's something that we need to start working on. We need to start working on how we engage with them, how we talk to them, also getting to the root cause of the problem, not shutting them down when they try to express themselves. Because in a lot of times, because of that attitude, people do not try to get to the source of the attitude. People want to just say, stop the attitude. But there's a reason why the attitude is coming in the first place. Let's understand what is happening. Why do you feel that way? And not only say the only way, it is often helped through going to therapy, because the therapist sometimes will give you the tools. They'll assess the patterns, they'll assess the situation, they'll assess behaviors, and they can be able to go deeper and see beyond what you can see. It's sad because not a lot of therapists as well have this gift of doing this. So that's why I think in a lot of times people will go to a therapist once or twice, and then they're like, not for me. Because some therapists will, I think there was an instance where I knew that my child was not okay, and I took her to a therapist, and the therapist said, oh no, it's normal teenage behavior. And to me, because I know this child, I live with this child, I know her normal behavior and I know her abnormal behavior. So that's why sometimes you find that people end up giving up on therapy. They go to one therapist, they want to give up. But I think it's important to try and find the right type of therapist for yourself. Rahad is saying maybe seeing a trauma coach as well. Also just trying out, there's this thing in the medical field. It's simple, where they say, get a second opinion. Let's try that. Go to one. If it doesn't work out, try another. But also, I know therapy needs money because it needs medical aid. If you go to if you use public services, then you'll be restricted to what the public hospitals can provide, or the public institutions can provide, which is quite limiting, because if you don't gel with that therapist, then you don't have a solution, an alternative. But there are platforms such as this one. There are other platforms where people talk about blended families, they talk about issues, and then you can start to get tips. And from those tips, you can take your notes, then go and explore. What is it that you can do to help your children? What is it that you can do to help your partner? What is it that you can do to help even your extended family? I mean, just was it this morning, late last night, I posted something around extended family. Extended family can be potent to our families, very potent to our families, very, very potent, because they've got their perception of what a family should look like. And it's like, and you know, the funniest thing is the same people who are in blended families, and some of them, because sometimes in some older generations, they will act as if the stepkids don't exist, and they are just a nuclear family and not a blended family. And when you come and you say, oh, I'm actually getting into a blended family, the first thing is like, oh, does she have kids? Does he have kids? You know, all those judgments. And then it's those things of, it's people expecting the old patterns of blended families to take place, where the stepmom is expected to be evil, the stepfather is expected to see the kids in a particular, in the wrong way. Let me say it like that, in the wrong way, because I don't want to use the wording. If I use the wording, I'll get blocked. Where stepchildren are expected to be rude and disrespectful and not treat their step parents well. There's that expectation that the family will fall apart and the marriage won't last. We've seen a lot of comments here where people were even saying, I won't do it. I won't do it. It's a waste of time, because that is the perception that's been sold in society. A blended family space can work, but you need to understand the uniqueness of your family, and then understand your role in this family, the role that you play in protecting this family, the role that you play in influencing this family, because sometimes we take it lightly. I'll make an example of a lady who is an aunt. When I talk about an extended family, a lady who's an aunt in a family, who just by saying something, passing on a message where someone says something to you, and you go and pass on that message as an extended family member to a step parent, and it seems like it's gossip. And now this thing will end up being turned around, and whoever is being spoken about will not be seen in a good light. So say I, as a stepmom, I say something about my stepchild, and then to maybe someone at my husband's family. They know the biological mom. Instead of talking to me or even my husband, they take this message straight to the biological mom. Will this not cause tension between me and the biological mom? That's what I mean, where I say extended family can have a major influence in how we move forward in blended families. So it's very important for us to just make sure that we know our roles, we know our responsibilities, we know our influence, because our influence really is the biggest thing here, how we influence our families, because we have major influence from a child all the way to an adult, to a grandmother, to an aunt. We've heard it in this conversation where people are saying, if this person doesn't get along with my child, they are out, because there's no point. Meanwhile, you're finding that your child is the one playing you, because like Gina was saying, not that she did something about it, but she was thinking it. Why didn't, if you're already in another marriage, was it Gina or Rahadi actually? If you're already in another bad marriage, then why did you leave my dad? And because of that, it's like, okay, now this marriage should also not work because you didn't try to make things work with my dad. Then your marriage is not going to, and that child is just adamant that nothing is going to work out for my parents until they decide they're going to get back together. How you influence the relationship as a step parent, you are the closest person to your partner. How they treat their ex, how they treat their children, it's all sitting in your hands. Because if you are influencing your partner negatively, your partner will not be able to be a good parent to his kids. If the relationship between your partner and his ex is not, and I'm not saying the romantic relationship, I'm saying the parenting relationship is not civil because of you, you are adding onto the problem. Let's be the solutions. Even as a biological parent, you know, this thing, and it hurts me. And I keep on talking about this thing of moms keeping fathers away from their children because the relationship didn't work out. And it's the saddest thing is that here we're talking to the converted. We're sitting at 80 people here. We're talking to the converted. Those who are doing this, they're not on this live. And they'll never join this live. They won't join this live. So you wonder which channels can one use to truly influence this, because we have a lot of fathers. You know, you even get to a point where you realize that a lot of absent fathers were not absent because they wanted to be absent. A lot of absent fathers were absent because they felt powerless and they couldn't fight any further, which is what we're seeing today. There are a few gentlemen like Utulani who managed to, from the word go after the breakup, let me be intentional about bringing my family together. Let me be intentional by making sure that these bonds between me, my ex's partner, and my ex, that we have a civil relationship amongst the three of us. He made it his mission to get to know this father who's going to be raising his child and have a relationship with him. Not just to be civil. Just to be civil. If your ex's partner has an issue, they can call uthulane and say, hey, yazi mfethu nansi inkinga la, umntwana oetha kanje kanje ubenjani nawe. Something as simple as that. It can prevent so much, because now this parent knows exactly how to deal with it. And also when there is consensus in the parenting styles, someone mentioned parenting styles, I forgot who. If there's consensus in parenting styles, then the child does not have an opportunity to find loopholes to take advantage of. Because children, are opportunists. When they see loopholes, they will take opportunity. In something as simple like not washing dishes. If uma azohlala sofa ngo-8 and I'm meant to be washing dishes, and uma decide ukuthi ngo-7 uyalala, nami ngiyolala. That's why we were woken up at 1 a.m. The dishes are still not washed, nenzeni. Sometimes with a beating back in those days. You know, children are opportunists. We do that. It's instilled in us, even us as humans. What I liked lastly, with Urahadi, what she said now, around these behaviors, the things that impact us. She didn't use attract. She said, "Oof, she's now I lost the vocab. I think it's what we're drawn to." I forgot what she said, because she said attraction is not the correct word, but I'll use attraction for the lack of a better word. These things, sometimes we are wounded, we are traumatized by. In that trauma, we tell ourselves that we won't end up here. Gravitate, yes, we gravitate towards these things because we are not healed. We have not healed that scar. That wound is still open. So sometimes they even call it, some couples actually start a relationship through trauma bonding. Some couples start relationships because as much as you think you've hidden it, this person can see it, especially umuntu oyi-opportunist, uzobona ukuthi kune-weakness like that I can play with and manipulate. And this is how people end up in relationships with narcissists. People who will take advantage of them, people who will use them, people who will hurt them, because you haven't healed yourself. And we can't even define what healing looks like. Healing looks different for all of us. And sometimes you think, oh, I've made it. Now I've healed. And then emva kwalokho you found yourself, uxakekile ukuthi how. Then, kwenzakalani ngoba I've healed? Kanti no, that healing opened up another layer. I always saying healing is like peeling an onion. It's got its own layers. My kids call me my dear. I don't play, Mara. I don't beat them. I punish ngezinto abazi Tandai. Yeah, that's why I say my mom, the one holiday, she stopped talking to me for the whole 3 weeks I was in KZN. Lapa I studied in Joburg. For the whole 3 weeks, there was no money, there was no dinners, there was nothing. I was at home. So yeah, but that's that's where we are. You know, we had Mselegu, who was also talking about passing down the gifts that you have to your children, your knowledge to your children, especially passing down that wealth and the legacy to your children. These are things that get lost in this. But I don't even think it's only a problem of blended families, but that's where I see, even if we try to work on it today, it will be more difficult. Us as a Black nation, we are not passing down the knowledge to our children. And I see this in families where, I'll say our Muslim families in KZN, where you'd see that a child from the age of 6, they're already going to the dad's shop. They are being taught how the business runs. All the way, every school holiday, they are working in the shop trying to understand what's going on. So that if one day anything happens to their parents, they can continue with the legacy. I've seen shows like there's a show called Gold Diggers, if you watched it. So these guys are finding gold everywhere, they're selling it, but they literally overnight gold miners, if I can put it that way. If they see that this area has a resource, they will go there, they will dig up the gold, they will clean up the area, they'll go. They can be at a place for a month, they can play at a place for 2 weeks, accessing this gold. The one child grew up, he grew up in the program. His grandfather died in the program, and he continued the legacy after that. He continued with the program. It didn't die out, but he also continued to find his own gold. And there was a group of them. And even when others tried to take advantage of him, it didn't happen. So these are the things that we need to do. I'm a culprit because I don't even think my daughter understands my job and what I do. Something as simple as that. Why do you teach? What is the importance of teaching if you're a teacher? And I'm saying this because we had Usenzo, who's a teacher, who was talking to us now. Why do you teach? Passing on that skill to your child. It's something that they can easily fall back on, especially now where we are today. You know, they could actually end up being teachers on the net. They could be teaching English online, which are things that they don't even need to study for. Because if you have English up until matric, you can actually teach English to Chinese and Taiwanese and so on online. You can go and stay in South Korea and teach English there just with the matric. So if you've already passed down that skill of teaching to your child, you have secured a career for them before they even go out to university. But we don't do this. So this is something for me that, stuck out from what Umselegu was saying, and just bringing his family together. I know he's struggling with his son, but one day he will get it right. And I think for me, I think you should not give up on your son. You should still spend time, try different methods. I know sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm done. Singathi ngashawa moya mangikwenzelile nje yonke into oyidinga. And nathi sis, even in nuclear families, ukuthola ukuthi a parent will say sengikhathele, I'm done now. But let's go back. Let's go back. Find our way back to our children. That's why eBhayibhelini kune chapter yendodana yolahleko. That chapter was teaching us forgiveness. Ukuthi our children will break us sometimes. Our children will break our hearts sometimes. Our children will hurt us sometimes, but we should not give up on them. And when they decide to come back home, we welcome them with open arms. And Selego, you're not the only one. There are a lot of people who have gone through that. There are a lot of people who are going through that today. And maybe, yes, taking a step back for a year or 2, and then after that saying, okay, when my son finishes, let's say he was in grade 10, and you say, hey, akaye boarding school, meqede boarding school ngizomela abuye ekhaya, sikhuluma ukuthi uzofunda phi ke emva kwalokho. We need to keep on continuing to work through these problems. They're not going to go anywhere. And umntwana akuthiwa awukho umgodi wokulahla umntwana, awukho umgodi wokulahla okungokwakho. You cannot throw away that which is yours. So that is also very important. And I know people will be like, oh, you told him to go, your kids are in the house. One thing I must say, I mean, I have younger stepchildren, and they're the most adorable. They are the most loving little creatures. They say we shouldn't call people creatures. They are the most loving little human beings I've ever met. But once you get to, even with my husband, my daughter was the best thing. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Shoo! Things change. So we must also understand that kids go through their stages. And a 12-year-old is much easier to deal with than a 22-year-old. And that's what we don't give parents, especially step parents, grace of. That it's the difficulty of raising a child who is finding it hard to accept you, but sometimes it's not even accepting you. I think in this case, it's probably just him being a young man. A young man now who feels like he needs to protect and be a protector. Forgetting ukuthi kunobaba wekhaya la ekhaya, and he needs to understand that, and boundaries must be set. I would also love for us to also just think about unbundling healing traumas. Trauma is very, very complex, and most people are even tired of hearing the word trauma because it gets thrown around like angazi in. We need to unbundle what trauma means. One thing that I took away today from Urahadi is that trauma is our own personal perception. Sorry, I keep on circling it. It's our own personal perception. Trauma is your own personal perception of a situation. And what I loved about her, what she said, is giving us those little examples of how something simple can be turned into a trauma. Gina actually said it as well, even though she wasn't alluding to that, but how her daughter, by just telling her, oh no, what was it? Her dad wanted boys, and then the first child was a girl, and then the kids after that were also girls. Then it's like, oh, if I had been a boy, then things would have been better. But that's not what G was saying to her. But the daughter carried that, and that's her trauma. So we need to understand the perception that we have on the situations that happen to us or things that were said to us, and just try to unbundle it. We need to unbundle it for ourselves in our own corners. You don't always need people to tell you you just need quiet time. Quiet time, focused time on you, because you are priority. And we forget that we are priority. We oftentimes forget that we are priority. Before anyone else, we are priority. Not to be self-centered, but placing priority on who am I, where am I going, what am I doing, how am I impacted, why am I impacted, what do I need to do about it? Loving yourself, taking care of yourself. Some of us can't even, there are people who look in the mirror and they just look right through. Abazbone. There are people who sit in front of the mirror and put on makeup and look like a beautiful flower with makeup. But the person that is in that mirror, they don't even recognize, because they have not done the inner work. They don't recognize themselves. Some of them refuse to look at themselves deeper than what they see on the surface. Some of them reject the person who is there deeper than what is in the surface. On the surface, I mean. And the reason for this is because healing is so hard. To accept that there's a defect in you of some sort, it's hard. And I say that because trauma causes a lot of issues in our families, in our environments, in our workplaces. Rahadi even touched on how everything that happens to us plays down in our workplaces. How this, I want to use attraction again, gravitation, the things we gravitate to. We gravitate to them because of unhealed parts of us in the workplace, in our friendships, in things that we're trying to build. Some of us are sitting here trying to build. Every day we wake up trying to build and things fall apart. Some of us are waking every day trying to put something together and it just doesn't work. Because many times in your life, you've seen people start and stop businesses in your family. And no business has ever come to light. So as much as, yes, you want to do different and you're going to push, but every now and again, kunalente reminder, I was, who are you to think you're going to do things differently? Let's think about those things. We're not in competition with each other as biological parents, step parents. We should actually focus on working on those relationships. KK even mentioned on the chat, sometimes it's so difficult to navigate the relationships because not everyone is willing to open up to co-parenting, parallel parenting. Not everyone is even opened to another man raising his child or another woman raising their child. Then there's also the competition where if your child is more comfortable doing this with the step parent, you have a problem. You have a problem with the child coming to tell the stepmom that, oh, I've got a stomach bug. What do you think I should do before they tell you? But they live with the stepmom. You have a problem with your child being cleaned and washed by a stepmom because they're your child, or taking them to the salon to style their hair. And yes, there are boundaries. I mean, there are certain hairstyles that we don't want on our children. I mean, there are moms who are more about natural hair. Don't put braids on my child. Don't pull my child's hair. Don't put chemicals on my child's hair. But these things they need to be known. And the only person who can make them known is the biological parent that you're in a relationship with. They need to nurture those relationships. They need to build those relationships. And then there's parenting styles, which I've also touched on briefly, that our parenting styles are not the same. Some of us want to give our children more because we grew up from a point of lack, from impoverishment, where we couldn't get certain things done for us or where we couldn't get certain gadgets given to us. So we want to give our children everything. Some of us want to be overly available emotionally and available for our kids to a point that our kids are unable to do anything on their own. We incapacitate them. They can't think on their own. They can't stand on their own 2 feet. They don't even know where to go with their lives. Mina ngizingeni, I'm just dad's wife. Opelong, what? Yeah, that selfish nature of wanting to feel or stay relevant in your child, and you will be relevant. You'll continue to be relevant. You'll continue to be relevant. So let's just take time to think about these things and process these things and find our way towards healing. I know there's a lot of talk on the internet about healing. There's a lot of talk about trauma. There's a lot of talk about laws of attraction, and these things are coming up now. Some of us have been doing it for, since we were in our mid-20s, and now we are almost 40. We've been doing this. We've been on this journey and it doesn't change. And I know people want to say, but this is just a phenomenon that is spoken about. It's a trend. No, it's not a trend. It's similar to how people want to make education seem like it's something that's just a waste of time. No, it's not. But we need to think beyond education. We need to think about the skills that we get and the knowledge that we get from education. What do we do with this? Give our children, that's why I'm saying if we're able to pass down the knowledge and skills we have to our children. If umntanakho today decides ukuthi uyofunda business management, for example, umseleko who's in business, that child gets a degree in business management or accounting or even law. They could come back home and make sure with all the contracts that are written at home are valid. And then yes, at home there's a business, but it's like a side hustle. That pride and joy. A lot of the kids that we know from other cultures, not just other cultures, are taught Uguti, no, this legacy will grow and you will be the one that will make it a multi-million or multi-billion-dollar business. But anyways, let me go. Ngabona people are distracted now. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here with me. Thank you to all my guests on the panel. Mutwening, I know it's tough for you. You don't like being on the panel, but I must say your insights were very, 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 very eye-opening for me. And I think a lot of people on the panel. I love people who talk like you and Gina, where you call a spade, and you call it out for what it is, so that when we know what it is and it's laid down bare to us, that way siyakwazi ukuthi nathi siyibuze ukuthi hayibo, you know. you need that sometimes. You need someone to call a spade because the spade is there. It's there. And igcwele usimende, and if singaboni ukuthi sikhona sigcwele usimende, uzoze wome lo simende singenze lutho ngawo. Nasi spade mase siba useless. So let's I would encourage you to come up every now and again, not every week, but every now and again, to talk to us. Tulani, my brother, I'm very grateful to see you again and hear your insights today. Uncle B, as usual, my co-host, he's busy today, but I see him. He's here. He's here. He's probably driving or at a school soccer game, somewhere doing family things. But I always appreciate getting your insights. Mele, you know, thank you so much for being here today. It was your first time with us. Nomselegu, no Senzo, no Sianda. I really appreciated all your insights. You know, Sianda, giving us your insights from a child's perspective. I think we always need that. And I'm so grateful that we always get someone who will give us that perspective. The one thing that I'm really grateful for this live is that we get gentlemen coming up and really speaking their truth. I'll forever be grateful for that, because for us women, we need to know what you're thinking. We need to know how things impact you. That's why what Ntate Musweneng said earlier, Ati, when your relationship with my child doesn't work out, I start to think of you differently and start to look at you differently. But how do we heal that? Because it's not always that happens because the person is evil. But those thoughts are running through your husband's mind when things like that happen. That's the truth. And that truth needs to be known so that we can deal with it and manage it and know how to express it if you are feeling that way as a partner, so that these things can be worked through and they do not result in the demise of a marriage, especially when they can be when they can be resolved sooner. Hey, Abo KK, no Gina, Nkosi yami. Just stay single, it's safe, Ayazin. Even Senzo, I really appreciate your story. It's opened up to the dynamics that happen. This issue always comes up. You know, the number of times it comes up, I'm actually starting to really worry. Ukuthi sabantu besifazane senzani kahle kahle neingane zethu, ngezingane zethu. Is it really just about you as a woman that you are heartbroken? Or is it about, okay, I've been heartbroken, but let me not pass down this heartbreak to my child? I also liked what Gina said, which your child does not need to prove anything to you or their father. They just need to know that they are loved just as they are. And this is where I'm going to close it, folk. We will be back next week, I think. The only issue I'm having is that I love to host at 6. Got that, Cape Town, this place, 6 o'clock, it's pitch dark. It feels like it's 4 a.m. So I'll probably start at 8 o'clock again next week, Saturday. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I will come up with a new topic. Out of the topic, we have a list of topics. I'll choose one for next week. I thank you all for the gifts. I thank you all for the gifts and the likes and the comments on the chat. Lisa, KK, Mbalentle, Megan, Zach, about Dikeledi, there was Sejo earlier, there was Jose Khadi earlier, there was Nono who wanted to come up. Thank you for joining my live. Who else am I missing? Chabza, ubani los, SK, Galen, but ish, guys, Nana Magamin. But yeah, thank you. Because I've seen you very active on the comments. Thank you so much. There's Sunflower. Sunflower, I did follow rural, it's rural stepmom. I did follow her. Her stuff hasn't been popping up on my timeline as much, but I did see her page and I did go through her page. It's a very interesting page of a mom who's raising her children in a blended family, and they live in the rural areas. I just hope her stuff will pop up more on my timeline. But yeah, I did follow her and her page. Yeah, it's almost like a lifestyle page for a stepmom in a blended family. There's a few stepmoms that I follow on both Instagram and TikTok. Lastly, I won't say about tomorrow because I'm not sure whether Uncle B is hosting tomorrow, but Mondays to Fridays, 3 a.m. There's always a live by Uncle B Busang. I'm not sure whether Mimi is hosting today at 1 o'clock, but we also have Mimi who hosts every day, on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. We have our Rahadi who has written a book which you should buy. So go on her page, check out her page, contact her, get hold of the book, especially if you want to get your life back after dating or marrying a narcissist, but also just generally getting your life back in order when you've had a lot of disruption in your life, because it's not necessarily the narcissist could just be the disruption that you've experienced. So yeah, check her out. I'm here next week at 8 o'clock. There's also a singles session on the 7th of September. That is an in-person session that is also organized by Uncle B. If you go on his page, you will get the details, Busang. You'll see the details on his page of that event. So all the single gents and all the single ladies, I think it will be helpful because it just basically the whole point is to get us where Lerato was talking about, where you've navigated your inner self so much that you're ready to take the next steps. So yeah, do join them. I do have my website ready, so if you do want to just check out what I do, who am I, you can go on my website, follow the link on my TikTok page. I've also got Instagram as well. My Facebook is not that active. It's merely just reposting what I post on my Instagram, but all my pages are Blended Family South Africa or Blended in Love SA. You will find me on all those pages. You can also just check out my website link and also my YouTube. But on YouTube right now, all I have is, I think 3 lives and some of the posts that I have on TikTok, but the lives are posted on YouTube, and YouTube as well. It's Blended Family South Africa. So thank you all for joining our live this morning. We do call it Pyjama Talks, Blended Family Pyjama Talks, from meant to be 6 to 8, but today we're 8 to 10, and now it's 11:30. So I'm almost like an hour and a half over time. The issue is that's why sometimes I say I can't bring people up, because when I do and I say 1 minute, then you always feel like I'm not doing this person justice. And that's how I felt like today with Usenzo. I really feel like I should have held it over to next week because we didn't do him justice. Maybe perhaps next week, for his sake, if he's still online, we can touch on a bit, let's talk about it. This topic of baby mamas keeping fathers away from their children. And I'll say baby mamas because I'll say it's wretched behavior. It's not good behavior. It's not the right way to do it. If a parent is not a danger to their kids, let's not keep them away from their children. Okay, everyone, have a great weekend. Have a good week ahead. I know I spent 30 minutes literally closing my live because I love reciting the whole conversation and what we've been doing and giving my insights, because I spend a lot of time just listening and listening, and I don't like coming in too much while people are talking, because then that would extend the time even more. So I just like to listen in and then give my insights towards the end. So that's why you have a whole other 30 minutes, 45-minute long session with just me alone. But I thank you all for joining. I think next week what we will do, we will talk about moms keeping dads away, even dads who keep moms away from their children, or making it difficult to co-parent. What I would love for you to do is that as soon as I start the live, you request, so that we can get moving quickly. There's not much background story that can be given there. It is what it is. There are those who are experiencing it. And I think if we are able to just jump right into the issues and maybe help different individuals resolve their issues, but also taking notes that most of us are not professionals in the space, but we are talking from a point of experience. So everything we say, take what you can, take what will work for you, understanding your character, understanding your situation, and use it as it may work for you. But at the end of the day, it's each to their own. It's doing what works for you and your family and your children. Most importantly, your children. Have a good weekend. Ciao.